Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Hi, everybody. Thank you, and thank you all for coming, and welcome to the Mills Fabrica. We are the official innovation partner for London Craft Week, and this is our 3rd year running that we've been supporting London Craft Week. So thank you again, London Craft Week, for the partnership. Today we've got a really jam-packed agenda of amazing innovators and designers to really showcase what we are doing here today. That's me. My name's Nikita. I'm the head of the Mills Fabrica here in Europe. And then this is our building. This is where we're sitting today. So I just thought to give you a little bit of an overview. I see some familiar faces here, but I just want to give you a little overview of what we do and who we are and why we're here. So at the heart of what we do, we are an incubator and investment fund. We invest in 2 pillars within the industry. One, which we call textile, which is textiles and apparel. But when we talk about investing in that side, we talk about the production, supply chain, and manufacturing side of the business. So we don't invest in individual brands, we invest in infrastructure that can help individual brands get to where they need to be. Because if we can fix what's at source, then everything else, let's say in front of the curtain, will be better. The other pillar that we invest in is agritech, which is more on the food side. So there's a lot of crossover when you're talking about organic cotton and organic produce there as well. And then we have, within this building, we have a co-working space. So we cherry pick all of the people within our space. So they have to all be, from the lens of sustainability within the fashion industry and the food tech industry. And the idea here is really about building a community of like-minded people so we can all help progress this move to sustainability together, because it's not something that you can do by yourself. It's something that we need to do as a collaboration. And then you may have walked past it when you were downstairs, Fabrica X, the amazing innovation gallery we have, which is curated by Gabriella. I'm not sure if she's here. She's probably downstairs talking to people. But there we showcase all of the latest innovations within the industry from, sustainability, let's say. So some of the showcases we're showcasing there are companies we've invested in. Some of them are companies that we think are doing conscious decisions, and we want to give them a showcase. So that we've got an exhibition there called Biomaterials, which is going to be running until September. And then we have our coffee shop, Nourish Communities, which is going to be providing the food with us today. And we have a Fabrica lab upstairs as well. So where we are today, I think we're doing screen printing with natural dyes with colorifics. So definitely have a look. And then we are in the events room here. And this events room's all about building the community and the ecosystem and inspiring everyone to move forward. So that's a little bit of an overview of who the Mills Fabrica is and what we represent. I'm looking forward to today, and I guess the first speaker today that we're going to have up is Manel Torres, the founder of Fabrican, not to be confused with Fabrica. I'd like to invite him up to come and tell you guys what some of the amazing stuff he's been doing.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. So first of all, on my presentation, I will play this video. That's why I'm here. dad was breaking my fabric constantly. And she touched my beard and said, okay, fine. So we had fun. So we done this in 6-7 minutes. They cannot hear me. Can you hear me? So that video went totally viral. So, you know, in 48 hours, we had 38 million viewers. So everyone knows about this dress, which is, it really has made this technology such a success. So here we have. So it was also a great collaboration with Coperni. So, yeah. And here is where I met them. So they came to London. My labs are about 10 minutes walk from here, from Mills Fabrica. I am at the London Bioscience Innovation Center, and I have offices and labs there. That's where Fabrican runs. And here is Sebastian and Christina, her stylist. They came to London. First they contacted me and they said, Manel, can you create an instant dress? Yes, of course. So they came, and here you can really see their faces. It's like admiring. So yeah, then they just only give me 4 weeks to prepare that dress for Bella Hadid. So that's how the fashion industry is. Very quick, very quick. And basically, you know, it's like this technology.
It could be any old haute couture
there is nothing
fashion
new
show.
about it, because I've been working for 2
one-of-a-kind
decades.
designer dresses started as a liquid.
Here you can
and
see me
came
a
from
bit younger with no
Liquid
beard.
fabric
In
is a suspension of
that was
polymers
2010.
plus additives.
So I was at
and
Imperial
fibers.
College doing these.
It's a new
instant
technology called
t-shirts.
Fabrican, mixing tiny natural and synthetic fibers with liquid polymers inside an aerosol can. It turns into a non-woven fabric and goes on like a second skin.
The spray-on fabric, when it gets in contact with the air, it solidifies into this instant non-woven material.
It starts as pure chemistry, but in the hands of a designer, transforms into art.
And that was an event that we did in Russia, Moscow, in 2011. So my presentation of today is all about the instant chemist tailor, which basically many people calls me the chemist tailor, but I think I am an instant chemist tailor because I do dresses instantly. So today's talk, I will talk about how it works, this technology, and mainly applications, because even that my beginning started in fashion, being at Imperial College, very quickly this research took me over that as soon as you can create an instant fabric, you can apply it in many disciplines like medical, automotive, you know, yachting, name it, interior design. And then how it works. So basically we work with binders and polymers. We work with different range of fibers from natural to synthetic. Especially we work with cellulose, with hemp, with organic cottons, with synthetics like polyester, also lots of recycling materials. We use different carriers to spray this technology. Then we also have additives that it controls us the strength, the feel, if we want the material matte. It can be antibacterial. Then also it can be absorbent, non-absorbent. It really allows this technology to manipulate it however the application is. And one of the good things is it can be redissolved and respray again. So this is the manufacturing life cycle of the spray-on fabric. So we get the raw material, we dissolve it into liquid form, we spray it either with manual spray, as you saw me, with the spray guns, or either with robots that we can spray this technology. Then if we're creating garments, they can be sold, wear, then they can be back to the shops, back to the manufacturer, redissolve and create the whole circle. So it's a bit like glass or metal, the way you can just redissolve and make new garments. And then the way we can spray this technology, we can do aerosols, which is very much for a customized, for medical applications, for cosmetic applications, spray guns, which basically is for a semi-industrial process, robotic arms, which is more for an industrialization process, and then we also working with aerial drones. Then here is like some data that, as you guys here interested in textiles, of where we are at the moment with this technology. So we can have materials with an elongation from 50 to 200, a tear strength of 40 newtons. I think we have a very good waterproof contact angle of 130 and 40. You know, this technology can be embossing, could be sandwiching, can have many different ways to work with. And here we have some examples, the way you can spray different layers, the way we can show that it's totally waterproof if we need to, can be absorbent if needs to, can be breathable if it needs to. We can spray different thickness as well. And here is the type of fabrics that we create with the spray-on fabric. So we have fleecy effects. This patch is made from an aerosol. Fabrican with gold, fabric with gold particles. So it's very good for creating smart materials, for spraying nanotechnology. We have paper-like materials. We have durable, rubbery materials, lace effect, soft suede, and bio-based leathers as well with this technology. So also something that we work now these days is in seaweed waste. So many companies, they approach us and they say, okay, we throw all this seaweed that we don't use. Can you create a fabric? And we have created these fabrics which they are transparent, they're good for insulation, and basically seaweed is very good because it's a fast-growing material as well. And also it absorbs a lot the carbon, the carbon. So, you know, it's like a win-win situation. And then also the spray-on fabric, it allows to mimic like traditional textiles, the way you can have this lacy effect, embossing, you can create many textures, you can print on it. And then also another nice, interesting thing about the spray-on fabric is that you can spray it on any 3D shape. You know, it's like, for example, we're working now to spray robots, so we're trying different arms, and it's like these ones are foam, these ones are in silicone, and we see that our material doesn't stick on it. And then also in structures, this is like we're spraying gold, 18-karat gold, and just basically the material behaves like gold, the way it cracks, and you can hear the crack of the gold. And then, you know, it's like different structures that we can spray with this Fabrican material. And here is the applications that interest me about the future of fashion. You know, the way I envisage a future shop is like that maybe you will have a booth and you will be able to 3D print a dress with this technology. So this is things that we're working currently on. And then that dress that was behind there, we got a commission many years ago by Lady Gaga, and we did it in black for her. I never saw any photos, but she bought it. So, so we have the future of how I see how this technology could be used in robots. That, for example, in shops, for example, like shops like Zara, you know, or H&M, they could have on the back like a printing system that will produce their outfits for what they will sell the next day. So that interest, you know, I'm talking with these companies, which they're very interested to implement this technology. It's all about funding now. And here is prototypes that we do here in London in our lab. So we have a mold, we spray the t-shirt, and then the t-shirt, you know, it's like we remove it and we have these instant t-shirts. And then how do I see as well is like bending machines. Maybe, you know, in the future we will be able to stand in a place and we will be able to see how our garments get made and collect them instantly. And here is some of the stuff what we're doing. We're doing like also applications on trainers, which these trainers can be made very light with carbon fibers. Then also I think for this country applications on hats for Ascot and for all these venues so that then you are not compromised always having the same hat. You can just have the structure, remove the fabric, and respray again. Then also applications in the medical field. That really, as soon as you can spray a t-shirt on top of someone, it leads into these medical wound dressings, drug delivery patches. It is, for me, that I started in fashion, it really fascinates me to go to this field. Then also, totally remove is like into automotive applications, the way you can spray on foam and contain the foam. And this is like linings that we're creating. And we make them black so that they're UV protective. And then collaborations with lighting. So for example, we have these structures, and then these lights, they can be fold, and then you can just have them into a light. So this light, it falls into flat. And it really shows that we're working with fabrics. And then also applications for yachts, and in using the spray on fabric in interior design, the way you can spray these materials conforming any forms and be able to create, you know, the ceiling, the sofa, the top of the table, and be able to control areas that can be, you know, totally waterproof. Some areas could be, you know, also mosquito repellent. You know, it's like we can embed a lot of the technologies to bring our rooms very functionable. So, and then something that I would like to really stress is all about the smart materials. The way this technology, because it's in a liquid form, is ideal to create smart materials, so that you can incorporate many elements to make these fabrics very functional. And here is my conclusion. So basically, for this technology, we can create instant non-woven materials very quickly. We don't need any water on this process if we want to. We can redissolve and reuse any material that we create with this technology. It is very easy to produce and easy to manufacture, and can be produced locally. Because if we have the raw material locally, we bring it back to the shop, they have the raw material, they can redissolve it, and the designers can send their designs almost weekly and printing these designs. So this is what this technology can offer. And Fabrican is our passion, basically, and that's what makes me get up and wanted to make that dream happen. And that's it. So basically, this is my talk. I was 15 minutes, I was okay? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Manel. I said I
It's
didn't.
okay, it's fine. I am Manel Torres. Don't worry.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My mind's racing already, and I've got overdue visit to your studio.
Yes, please. We're not far.
But next, we're going to get Kaiser from Dezeen to come and do a Q&A with Dr. Manel, and really probe him and get some of the questions we all want answered. Yeah. Thank you.
Fine. Shall I sit here? So ask me easy questions.
Easy questions. Softballs. Hi everyone, I'm Kaiser Carlson from Dezeen. I'm the deputy editor. It's great to see you all here, and thanks Nikita for the introduction. So to start with, how did you come up with this idea? It's amazing.
Well, you know, I've been in UK now for, I think I came 1995 or 1996 to do a master degree at the Royal College of Art. And then there, when I was doing my master degree in fashion women's wear, I realized how important for me would be to create something that could speed the process of manufacturing. It's like when you are landed as a fashion designer, I don't know if there are fashion designers here, it's like you are landed with that you have to produce these collections, and with such a short time, so you're thinking, it would be amazing if I could spray something. And I think when you are, you know, I was very naive, I must say, because I thought that should be easy. But look, 20 years, I'm still fighting for it. But yeah, there I had that kind of belief that I could do that. So then when I finished my MA, I approached for a PhD at the Royal College of Art to do it. They said no. But they said to me, look, Manel, you can go to work. So then I went to work in the fashion industry, and then if you're really, really committed, we will evaluate your proposal. So then while I was working, at that time I was working in India, I got a phone call from a professor from the Royal College of Art, Professor James Park, and said, look, Manel, I really believe that you should come and do this PhD, because it will be good to know if it's possible as well as if it's not possible. So your research will be very valuable. And then I had that position. I started, and then luckily I realized that at the Royal College I could not do it because they didn't have labs, they didn't have the facilities. And I managed to be very lucky to go at Imperial College at the chemical engineering. Even, you know, I'm emotional because, you know, it's like I really live all that and breathe all that journey. So then basically, yeah, it was the right timing. At that times, probably they were more open-minded to have a fashion designer working on their labs. So there I was, and I've been at Imperial College for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
A long time.
And so you started this 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's really kind of kicking off now with the Coperni show.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think now is the right time? What's changed in the past 2 decades?
I think the difference, sorry that I'm talking too much, but the difference is that at that times, at 2010, Imperial College, we did this big show showing this technology. But we didn't have the media that we have, the social media that we have now. The social media, you guys are the driving of this technology, the ones you're creating awareness, and where the industry is thinking, well, you know, if you guys showing interest, then there is a market. But I remember in 2010 at Imperial College, we had this massive press, and they were even telling me, Manel, you're not allowed to talk to the press, because for a college of Imperial College to be associated in fashion is like, well, nothing to do with fashion. So they were repressing, honestly. I remember I was not allowed to talk to press, I was not allowed to do anything. But, you know, we're talking, that is 2010. Now things change.
Yeah. And you were mentioning in your talk that this could be kind of locally sourced, locally produced. Could you talk a little bit about, is this a more sustainable alternative to the textile industry, and if so, why?
Well, I think the way I see it is another way of creating textiles. I think it's like we need many different ways to create the textiles. There is no a perfect one, but I think how more choices we have, the better to create new things and how things could overlap. Yeah.
And do you believe that it's a scalable proposition? Could we eventually see it, like you said, in Zara stores across the world?
Definitely. I think it's very easy to scale. The only problem what we have is such a new technology that there is no, it doesn't exist basically. But I have made, even for these fashion shows that you have seen, I have made 80 liters, 40 liters. When I did my fashion show first, I made 40 liters of this formulation. I only needed 20. And I had, because it was an experiment, you know. And yeah, now, for example, these lights that you saw, we're planning to do maybe 300 lights. So that shows that, yes, we can scale it up.
Yeah. And are you in talks with any companies at the moment? Are there any plans to work with other collaborators?
I think there are many companies interested. But everything is quite slow because it's all a new change of manufacture, a new change. Everyone wants to use this technology, but yeah, also we're a small company as well, so we need to grow slowly. But you know, I travel a lot, so I was in Arabia Saudi just yesterday. I arrived, and I might do something there. You know, it seems like the Arabs, they have a good understanding about this technology.
And obviously we're now in a room where loads of people are interested in biomaterials. There's a lot of knowledge in this room about different types of fabrics and materials. And you mentioned a biopolymer made from cornstarch, and also that you're working with seaweed. Like, what other type of sources are you using for the materials?
We work with a whole range. You know, it's like we use lots of the cellulose materials, collagens. Basically, you know, every client, every application comes with its own agenda, and then we fulfill that brief based on the spray on fabric technology. So there is room here for, you know, we're very excited about the seaweed material because it's a waste material that we can incorporate. Then, yeah, we have a whole range.
Okay, so you're saying that the production process can be adapted to using different
Yes.
materials depending on the client's wishes.
Yes.
Is there any material that you're really excited to work with that you haven't tried out before, or anything you think could work that you'd like to test? I mean, seaweed is obviously super fascinating.
Yeah, seaweed is probably that's why I put it on the presentation, the most exciting, and we're getting very good results, and we have fashion companies interested. So I just sent basically from my last talk that I did in Mills Fabrica in Hong Kong. So then basically I made some contacts there and I sent these samples of seaweed to them. So yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of for if you're working with a designer, or if you're kind of working with a group of designers, how do people feel about the fact that is it harder to drape this material, for example? Is it exciting for designers, or do they find it a bit limiting? What do you think?
No, I think is basically you can really do whatever you want, because for example that approach that we did for Coperni was like basically a very fitted dress. But always what I have been working on is showing that you can drape that dress. So for example, you can spray the fabric in the wall or on a glass, peel it off, and then drape it on top of you. So I think it's limitless, the applications and how you can use it. There are many things that I have not explored, and I even don't know that you know, consumers and users will teach me how to do it, basically, because, you know, there are limited of applications and possibilities.
Yeah.
Even, for example, sorry, the frames, you know, it's like the way, I don't know if you've seen this petal dress that I made. So that is like a tiny frame, and then you can really create this fabric, almost like this spider web, and be able to create these shapes.
And also you were saying that you can create different types of fabric. You can create embossed fabric, thicker
Yes.
fabric. So you are getting that kind of structural difference, textural difference.
Yeah.
And I suppose I'm wondering a little bit as well, this is something that seems still quite futuristic, but you have been working on it for a while. Do you think that we are starting to see more innovative ideas such as this? And is that partly because in a global environment you can get more inspired by people across the world working on these kind of projects?
I think, I don't know, it seems now the right time, you know, like everything, you just work on projects. And probably one of the biggest challenges is to maintain a project alive. You know, I think for me, it's like, you know, it's like, okay, well, yeah, now I can talk about the technology, but the hardest has been these 20 years just to make sure that you have this technology alive. And I think many of you will relate on that.
Yeah, definitely.
The rest is like, well, but the hardest is, yeah.
And it's interesting as well because obviously you're kind of from a fashion background. We all know the Coperni dress really well.
Yeah.
But it's super exciting, this idea that you can apply it also to medical dressings, antibiotic fabric, antimicrobic fabrics. Can you talk a little bit more about, are you developing that? Is that something that you think might happen?
So basically, the way this project started, when I was at Imperial College, the first company that I was approached was with Raked Benckiser, and they do soaps, yeah, and wipes. So for a fashion designer, that was like, my God, you know, it's like, now wipes? Wipes? But, you know, this is what has maintained this technology to reach to Coperni. So basically, I've been doing wipes, I've been doing depilatory patches, I've been doing bandages, I've been doing the seats for the cars. I've been doing for all these applications that my brain was not prepared for, but I embrace them because I learn a lot. And for me now, I see that that's also creating fashion. You know, it's like you can really add the fashion elements. Even we had some jewelry pieces made. That's why I had the chance to experience with 24 karat gold, 18 karat gold to be able to spray these materials. And yeah, copper, you know, it's like, look, I've been 20 years of accumulating data. So we have lots of data on this technology, lots and lots and lots.
And what is the next step for it?
Well, the next step is very exciting because I think my aim is to bring it to all of you. So, the aim is to create a brand and try to make sure that you guys can come to our shops and experience to be able to spray and have the experience of the spray on fabric. So this is what we're working on now.
Yeah. And do you think as well that included in that will be an infrastructure for the recycling? Because you were saying that even though the spray is a mix, from what I understand, of different materials and fabrics, you will be able to recycle all of it.
Yes, because basically what we do is, we dissolve them and then we separate the materials, and every formulation is different. But for example, let's talk about the Bella Hadid one, this fabric of Bella Hadid, which is 100% cellulose. You just grab it, redissolve it, and you can respray again. Some other formulations are a bit more complex, but then we have ways to separate the formulation and then they extract the different layers.
So in theory, if a store had the technology to do this, you could adapt each individual garments with different ingredients for the materials. Yeah. That's really fascinating. And with the Bella Hadid dress, did you have any kind of rehearsal time, or was it all live?
No, basically, I will tell you how it went. So as soon as arrived Bella, everyone, Bella, I thought, she will have to come to me. I don't need to rush. So she eventually, they said, here is Manel Torres. He will spray the dress. And we really click. She's very human being, very easy, very, okay. And then she said, let's go to my changing room. Okay, let's go. So then she said, what you first would like to try me? I said, well, probably the most sensitive will be your stomach, this area. And said, okay, go on. So I spray her, and it's magic, because as soon as you see that it appears, that fabric instantly, and it dries instantly. And then she was very concerned about her breast, and she said, but I don't want to come to the, I said, look, no, you don't have to, no one will see anything. And then she basically, I said, you just cover your breast with your hand, and then you just follow me. While I'm spraying, you just move. So we done that, and then she was like, wow, she loved it, because she was very concerned. And then, that's it. That was the trial. But I requested to Coperni. I said, if we want to get the magic of Bella Hadid experiencing, has to do it for first times, because otherwise you are prepared. I think for an event like this, she has to experience it the first times. And they listened me. I was very relaxed. And they were saying, are you not nervous? I said, look, I spray maybe 20, 30 or 40 women. It's like, for me, that's fine. It's just, and it was great.
It's very brave.
No, I think when you are connected to your technology and you've done it so many times, and I was convinced that will be fine. I was very relaxed. Even I left one moment, and these guys from Coperni, they thought I was leaving. I said, how I can leave? We're at 3 minutes to start the show. But they really thought, it's like you're nervous, and you say, okay, I'm going to the toilet quickly, and they just follow me, and they said, I thought that you were leaving, Manel, but crazy guys, how I can leave now?
So the final question, what is the future of Fabrican, and what do you think is needed for this to become a more common feature in the fashion industry,
look, it's
or the medicine industry?
It's amazing. I think today I'm coming probably the perfect day, because my meeting that I had in the Saudi Arabia.
You have exciting news?
Yes.
Do you?
Well, basically I cannot say much, but that's it. I think you will guys see it. You will see it. So I have a deadline, so you will see things on the 31st of December.
Well, please keep Dezeen posted on that, and all of us.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for
pleasure.
taking the time to speak to me.
My pleasure. And thank you for guys for being here and listening to me as well. Thank you.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, guys. Next up, we're going to have Amy, who's the Chief Design Officer of Biofabricate, up, talking about what they do. We've been working very closely with Biofabricate over the last few months. They've helped advise us with our biomaterials showcase here, downstairs in our innovation gallery, as well as supporting us in our innovation gallery in Hong Kong. So, and also one of our local residents here in the co-working space. Thanks a lot, Amy.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. First of all, is this working? Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much for that introduction, Nikita. It's really lovely to be here and to see so many people. As Nikita said, I'm Amy Congdon. I'm the Chief Design Officer at Biofabricate. And really I'm here today to talk about what we think of or is most excited about as a planet-saving innovation, and that's working with and collaborating with biology and living systems and nature to produce our materials and our products in the future. But first, before I get on to talking about biomaterials, I wanted to just introduce a little bit about Biofabricate and who we are and what we do. So some of you may recognize the image on the left. Our founder, Suzanne Lee, has been working in the field of biomaterials for, actually this year marks the 20th year that she's been doing it, and I think very much in common with Manel, it's every innovation has its time. She actually wrote a book called Fashioning the Future and featured Fabrican, so that was, and I think with her project, it was just wasn't the right time for it. So it was finished in 2013, but many other companies have gone on and taken this as inspiration to develop materials for the fashion industry. So as a team, the core team we're all designers by training, but we've all had experience and have worked in-house at biotech and in labs. So the middle image is actually from my PhD work. So I'm a textile designer by training, really, really traditional, like think embroidery. And this is where I found myself. I got introduced on my BA to the idea that we could collaborate with living organisms and potentially grow materials. And I was like, well, that's got to be how we do things, right? That makes total sense. So it became a bit of a research obsession. I did an MA Material Futures based at Central St Martin's, which is near here, and then went on to do a PhD at the Design and Living Systems Lab at Central St Martin's in collaboration with King's College London, based at Guy's Hospital, where I was creating textile scaffolds and trying to control and orient cell growth around them, which, having not done science since GCSE, was quite a learning curve, but hugely rewarding and fascinating. And then we both, Suzanne and myself, were working in-house at a biotech called Modern Meadow. She built the first design team at a biotech, and this is a piece that we worked on, which was in the MoMA show, Fashion, Is Fashion Modern? And it was the first biofabricated piece to be acquired into the museum's permanent collection. So what we do a lot of educational work and advisory and things like that. So we have a biomaterials learning platform that we've been working on. We do industry reports and diligence. This was a report we did a couple of years ago with Fashion for Good. It's not a light read, I think it's about 120 pages, but it's freely available on our website should you want to really dig into this topic. We also do talks. We work on creative projects for biodesign innovators, so things like branding and brand strategy and creation, exhibit design. So this was a piece that we did for the recent show at the Barbican, Our Time on Earth, which featured a range of different biomaterial innovators, including a company that's based here. I see some people from the room, so Colorifics were one of the exhibitors in our piece. And then we also do things like materials and product design. And maybe what we're probably best known for, and this is a bit of a shameless plug moment, so bear with me, we have our Biofabricate Summit that we run every year, where we convene the community of biomaterial innovators, brands, investors, and this year it's happening in Paris from the 4th to 6th of October, and our tickets will be opening for applications 19th of May. So that's the plug over. And then we have our Biofabricate community that will be, the doors will be opening virtually for that on the 19th of May. And this is something new that we're working on to try and connect the ecosystem, bring everyone together and make sure that the conversation carries on throughout the year. So pop yourself on our mailing list if you're interested. But at Biofabricate, and sort of focus on my talk, is really to speak about our vision, which is, and our vision is our material world built with biology. So as I said, collaborating with and learning from nature to think about different ways that we can make our materials and our products, because I think, as we all know, the way we've currently been doing that has its problems. Nature's got a bit of a head start on us, so we should really take that sort of humility and see how it creates and produces in the amazing ways that it does. But before I go in to talk about biomaterials a little bit more, I thought it's always good to do a bit of a history lesson. So just to sort of put ourselves in context of our use of materials as a species. We first started using nature's materials. We've been doing that for millennia. So things like leather and wool and silk and linen. I think this is the oldest leather shoe ever found. And then as we moved into the 20th century, we thought, can we replicate what we have in nature, but in a different way? So we started making synthetic naturals. So materials like rayon, which were actually marketed as artificial silk. So we were trying to reference nature's materials, but make them in a different way. And then, as we moved into sort of the 1960s, we've moved away from any reference to nature, apart from the fact she's dressed as a bat. And we were really leaning into synthetics, their performance capabilities, their aesthetics. We came to love their sort of cheap price and their mass availability. And really, it sort of moved away from any reference to nature's materials, and we really started to explore the possibilities of synthetics. But then as we moved into the 80s, we realized that might not be such a good thing, that there were problems that came with those materials. So what we tried to do is copy synthetics using nature. So we used companies like DuPont were trying to use sort of inputs like plants to make alternatives to synthetics. So biosynthetics had some bio input to produce something that was as close as possible to the synthetic materials that we were used to. But now, as we move into sort of today, it's an era of materials that we're really excited about, and the show downstairs is really focusing on, is using synthetic biology and biomaterials. So you may have heard of some of these, things like mushroom leather, spider silk, algae fabrics, things where we are working with a different set of tools to produce our materials and our products. But we've heard this word a lot. What are biomaterials? So it's always, I think it's good to have a level set on what that is. It's a really general term. It can mean kind of anything that is in some way biologically derived. So leather's a biomaterial, cotton's a biomaterial, all the way through to a spider silk that's been produced by bacteria in a lab. So as with any material, we have to understand just because it's bio doesn't necessarily mean it's better, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's had any really complex or new technology. So we really have to dig that level deeper to understand how is it made and what are its impacts and implications. And I think we all know why that's important to ask those questions. I don't think this is a room that I need to tell people why we need to think about doing things differently. But by the time I finish my talk, we will have added another 2 million tons of carbon emissions into the atmosphere, 25 million tons of microplastics into the sea, and 3,500 tons of clothing or textiles will have gone to landfill. So we know that there's a problem, and everyone I think in this room is part of trying to be the solution to figure out how we can do that differently. And that's an interesting, the image has not appeared, but maybe it will come up in a minute. One of the things that blows my mind still, and why we're particularly fascinated with working with nature, is that we have only discovered 0.001% of all species on Earth. And already we have discovered organisms that naturally will make us pigments. So things like pigments for dyes, for textiles, like the work of colorifics. Will grow materials like cement in ambient conditions in the same way that coral reefs form. So rather than having to heat things up to massively high temperatures and extract from the earth, we can use biology to grow our structural materials. Companies like Biomason are producing sort of currently tiles, but when they match like for like, theirs can be 3 times stronger than a concrete block. And even, and most excitingly, we've got organisms that can feed on emissions. So a lot of organisms, everything needs food to live. Same thing with tiny organisms. No matter how big you are, you need some kind of nutrition. But instead of sugar, which a lot of organisms use, there are people who are looking at organisms that can feed on emissions, which is surely where we need to get to. 2 birds with 1 stone and all of that. So we're really turning to nature's toolkit, and this is our particular interest. So we're working with things like algae. That's from sort of macro scale algae that you see at like the beach, so seaweed and kelp, through to microalgae, these little cells here, bacteria and yeast. But instead of maybe using them to produce alcohol, which I know we all know and love, we can engineer it to produce something like a protein that is like spider silk. Mycelium, which is best understood as a root-like system of mushrooms, and that can be used for things like alternative leather, sort of packaging materials, all kinds of things. And then also there's a whole group of innovators, and that's really the focus of the panel today, looking at waste biomass. So how do we think about our resources intelligently, and rather as not as a problem, but as part of a solution? And this is just some of the examples of the sort of prototypes and products that are coming out to market. These are all biomaterials. The main sort of applications at the moment are things like leather, fibres and fabrics, dyes and finishes, but there's also applications, of course, for things like food, but also personal care, automotive, construction, interiors. Really, just anything you can think of as a material or as an ingredient or a product, there's probably there's a biological way to make it. But why use them? I think they have the potential to have savings or impact in all of these areas. They can mean less water, less land, less toxic chemistry, and less greenhouse gas emissions. Doesn't mean they all will, and as I said earlier, we can't do the easy assumption that bio equals better, but they done right and really realised as the potential of this technology, they can mean real savings in all of these areas. And also, they have other potential benefits. They can be animal and fossil-free, fuel-free. They can offer new design possibilities. They can be traceable, have reliable quality and quantity, and they also offer new manufacturing possibilities. So one thing that's also worth saying is with any technology, this is going to be measured in years and decades, not in the months or weeks of fashion, as we know. Like real innovation takes a lot of time. Probably the first iterations that come out will be the least exciting, perhaps in some ways, because we've got decades to realise the potential of these technologies. So they're just only going to get better and more exciting. And it also is important economically. So the future bioeconomy is predicted to be worth between $4 and $30 trillion by 2030. So it is going to become an ever-increasing part of our economies and our lives, and I think the UK is really leading in this field, so we should continue to support and champion the innovation that's happening here. And I wanted to leave you on this quote that I found, which is managing waste is a really bad goal. Only an inefficient system would aim to manage waste. A better goal is making waste non-existent by designing the system itself through its participants to continually upcycle resources. So the panel that we're about to have is actually 3 leading bioinnovation companies from the UK who are all using waste as their input, sort of biomass waste as their inputs. But they're reframing and thinking about waste not as a problem or something with no value, but actually a valuable resource and something that we should think of as part of a continual cyclical sort of process and system, and that we should be thinking about how can we use all of our resources available rather than trying to mitigate and manage them, but thinking about how we can use them in really smart and valuable ways. So thank you so much for listening to me, and I'm really excited for the panel that's about to follow. So I think we'll just roll straight into it. So can I ask my 3 panelists that are hiding up, they're all here, to come up and join me on stage. I think there's 2. Do we need one more mic? We're going to pass it round. So thank you so much for joining me. As I said, it's great to be joined by 3 UK-based sort of leading bioinnovation companies. I'm actually 3 co-founders. So Yudi Ding from Hyde Biotech, Brett Cotton from Arda Biomaterials, and Patrick from Pinto from Really Clever. Thank you so much for joining me. I think, and all of you guys are making sort of alternatives to leather with the waste that you use. So before we get into it, I'm actually just going to call out the elephant in the room, which probably seems like we've actually just invited 3 competitors onto stage. But actually, what we really wanted to do with this panel is, and I mean, it's a cliche, but a rising tide lifts all boats. We need all solutions as fast as possible, and I think we need everyone to win together. And let's be honest, if all 3 of these guys scaled to a decent size tomorrow, there'd still be more demand than there is supply. So let's just think about how they're all approaching this in a different way, but also really thinking about how we can lead in the bioeconomy in the UK. So I think let's kick it off by if you each want to just introduce yourselves and where you're from and what your company does, and then we'll get into the discussion.
I guess I'll start first. Thanks, Amy. Thanks to the Mills for this amazing event. My name is Yudi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Hyde Biotech. My background is in chemistry and chemical engineering. I did my PhD in Cambridge on protein and organic chemistry. And prior to that, I was in Paris studying chemical engineering. So really have a science engineering background. Also I had industrial experience in cosmetic R&D as well as pharmaceutical manufacturing. So at Hyde, we're making a waste-derived collagen-based biomaterial that is inspired by leather. The reason why we love collagen is because it's such an abundant and a robust protein that is a fundamental building block of the real leather in our skin. So we really think that we can leverage this power of collagen to build a fascinating and natural material. Hyde is based in Cambridge. We're based in the Science Park, and we're a seed stage company, full-time employee 11 people, and set to double hopefully in the next 18 months. Personally, I really enjoy being at the intersection between fashion and science, because it really combines the creativity as well as the scientific rigors. And I believe Amy and many of people here can relate to that as well. So I'll keep it at that. Thank you very much.
Yudi.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brett Cotton. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Arda Biomaterials. I have an MBA in biotech from Cambridge. I wrote a book on how alternative protein founders in food and fashion can impact climate. And about a year ago, I met my co-founder TJ, and we began building Arda. And what we do is we transform the waste stream from breweries into an alternative leather. It's basically beer into leather. But what we actually take is the spent barley grains. So the brewers are really interested in the sugar content because that gets fermented into alcohol, and we take the rest, so the protein and the fibers. Typically, this waste stream is fed to cattle, but we can skip the cow, we can skip the slaughterhouses, and directly transform at the brewery into a strong material.
Thanks, Brett.
Morning, everyone. My name is Patrick Baptiste Pinto. I'm the co-founder of Really Clever. We're on a mission to create truly sustainable products accessible to everyone. And to realize this mission, we've actually created an album of IP that's underpinned by fungi mycelium, but currently that's sat on the shelf. But today I'll be speaking about our first hit new single, our new biomaterial. Now, to create our material, we look to nature and we search for regenerative, sustainable, bio-based ingredients. And using our biochemical process, we take these ingredients and infuse a ubiquitous and underutilized waste stream from the mushroom industry. And the output looks something a little like this, which is a viscous, cake-like mixture biopolymer. And from this single unit tech stack, we can create up to 72 million different specifications of our base material, with product applications such as leather alternatives, substitutes to faux leather, but more excitingly, products with their own unique features and benefits.
Great. Thank you so much. So many questions, but let's kick off with, why did you decide to start a company, and how did you pick waste as sort of your input of choice, and what was the sort of driver behind that?
I guess to start as well.
Kick it off, Yudi.
Yeah, so I started at my third year PhD project, and I was in the Dresden School in Cambridge. So at the time, we're trying to create a new material that is similar to leather, and using collagen is naturally become the idea. And initially, I was working with a professor in the university creating collagen from stem cell technology to leverage the cells to produce the collagen. And throughout the 1 year, realized there's a huge demand, but there is such a small supply using the technology right now. I'm still hopeful for the future, but if we want to get to scale and really make the impact that we want to bring as a sustainable material startup, we really need to find solutions and find resources that is cheaply available, scalable, and that made me make a pivot to find where can we find collagen. And then actually collagen, as we know, is one of the most abundant protein in the world. There's a lot of surplus in the food industry, and we look at different sources of collagen from bovine, ovine, piscine, and all of that, and then try to find the most sustainable and least impactful material. And then we find the piscine, which is fish collagen. It is the target, and then we start to source the material, work with the suppliers, and achieve the transparency that will lead, and then isolate the protein that we want and build a material, build a prototype, and so we can work with fashion brands. So that's my story.
Yeah, great. And I think, Patrick, just to touch on something that you said, where you said this, you pop one thing on the shelf, but you really look to an abundant waste source for yours. I mean, was that a driver for sort of scale and to have impact quickly?
Exactly that. So the initial technology that we were looking to do was leverage unique properties of mycelium in the context of liquid state fermentation. But ultimately, we highlighted some gross inefficiencies when it came to the scale-up methodology, which was high growth time, low performance, and high cost. And ultimately, for us to create a true alternative, we need to, of course, reach price parity as quickly as possible. And to be a true substitute, we, of course, need to produce the material in a high throughput manner. So ultimately, what we did was pivoted our technology from a mycelium-derived product through to the actual fungal waste stream. Because what we recognized, the compounds that are responsible for a great material in the context of mycelium also present in the waste stream that we now leverage as well. So instead of now growing something, we essentially delegate and abdicate that particular responsibility to our suppliers so they can deal with the burdensome CapEx-intensive parts of the process, and we can deal with the core magic of innovating against the polymer.
Great. And Brett, just also come to you. I mean, just a question around sort of scale of the waste stream versus like how much you need. I think that's always as we think about, great idea for all of these, but just how we match the sort of scale of a stream to an application and sort of what that looks like.
Yeah. So TJ and I started in Bermondsey, which, for those who don't know, is home to London's craft brewery district. You have the Bermondsey Beer Mile, so there's about 20 breweries there, and we happen to live there as well. So someone said, why don't you go pop down to the brewers? They got tons of waste. And then we learned that they have this immense amount of spent barley grains. And we looked into it, and there's millions and millions of tons in the world. We would actually only need 10 to 15% of the spent grains to satisfy all of leather demand in the way that we manufacture. And it's kind of funny because we were originally looking to do spent grain into food ingredients, but then we spoke to a friend at AB InBev, and she said, don't do it. It's really challenging. There's regulations, and to get a food ingredient, an isolate, you only sell pea protein for about 5 pounds per kilogram, so it makes it quite difficult unless you're the biggest brewery in the world. So then we looked to other protein-based materials like leather, and now instead of in the food sector I was creating food, now we create a wearable material, and food is just a edible one. And so we actually aim to partner with breweries around the world, so we can actually produce locally. So it's something that you were touching upon with Fabrican, is empowering local supply chains. There's so much of this grain, it's a waste stream. A lot of brewers will pay to get rid of it, actually. And what if we could just use that within cities and create materials that can be used by artisans in-house?
Great. And I think I wanted just to move on sort of a bit on that sort of thought, but just because the focus of this event is obviously planet-saving innovations, and I'd love to sort of know how you're thinking about impact and tracking that. I think for anyone, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in this room know that often LCAs are asked for probably too early on for companies. An LCA is something that you can really do when your process is locked down. Scale makes a huge difference to your impact. But, when you are starting a company from scratch and from the ground up, how are you thinking about tracking that until you work towards that as a sort of an output?
I'll take first. So when I started the business, and then we're looking at a different waste stream, and we're looking at a different, for example, food stocks production and its own life cycle, and see the data that is already generated in the public domain to see what are the, for example, production of the cow, of the sheep, of the fish, and what is the carbon footprint, what consumption, land use associated with those industry itself. And second of all, once we get the protein, and then from the protein to making our material, there is a transformation step as well. There's the different processes to produce the material, and then we can only do our best to estimate, okay, this can reference to certain industry, for example, synthetic leather industry, that also using different equipment as well. So we can combine this together and then try to do our best to estimate, okay, per square meter of material, how much is the carbon footprint, what consumption, et cetera, et cetera. And being very honest and transparent with the brand is incredibly important. So during our brand conversations, and we need to say, okay, I understand that LCA is something that is required, and we definitely have that plan, when we scale up and do our production. But right now, this is the data that we generated, and this is the data that we collected from these credible sources, and then we present to the brand, and the brand typically they're very comfortable with that type of transparency at data. So that's our approach right now.
Great. I don't know if anybody wants to. I know we're all different sort of stages of companies here. I mean, this is always the question I feel that comes pretty quickly in conversations, and then it's it's a different answer depending on where you're at on your journey. But
for ourselves, it's quite easy to kind of estimate on a very basic level in terms of the carbon output of our particular product set, because we leverage, of course, a mushroom waste, and as we know, mushrooms like to be in the dark, and of course in humid conditions, and they're typically hand-picked. So we can logically estimate this, and currently we sit about 97% carbon impact of that leather, and roughly about 93% less water usage of that leather as well. So, but in the context of actually assigning and assessing the current impact that we currently have, we prematurely started to adopt third-party software systems to measure our scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And I say prematurely not because the data is actionable, but more so we can embed the correct behaviors in our teams so that we can consider sustainability more holistically, rather than just simply the technology that we create and the output that we then achieve.
Great.
Yeah, it is very difficult for early stage startups. So you can do your best at estimating, and for us it's about 0.1% of the water and 77 to 99% less CO2. There's a whole suite of other things to track as well, like biodiversity, land use. And so I think with brands, it's important for them to be patient, because we need to lock in our formulations, lock in our processes at larger scales before we'll go and get a formal third-party LCA done. I think for all of us, it's we're all better, but just about how much better than alternative, plastic and animal-based materials.
So in this panel's case, bio does equal better on this one. And I think we've talked about them a bit as well, but how, just to touch on brands and partnerships, like how are you thinking about that? What's your, if you were to set up a profile of, Startup Seek's brand, what would be your ideal partner? Is it like great patience? Like, what are you looking for in that sort of brand partner, and how are you thinking about that as a company?
For us, very luckily, we're dealing with a lot of inbounds, and then because also, initially when I was in Cambridge, connections, and then I think there's the capacity that we have currently cannot fulfill all the brands that we want to work with us, so we can select who we want to work with. And there's luxury, there's fashion, there's mass market. So our approach is to work with the luxury first, so that they have the resources, the personnel, and also the brand prestige to help us in the initial journey. But also, one thing that's very important is that they don't compromise on quality, which is counterintuitive, because actually, I think it's better for us not to compromise on quality, because for the sake of sustainability, because that's not going to work. It's the fashion world. It's especially luxury is about top quality, provide a luxurious experience and the product to their clients. So if we decrease the value of the product by providing an inferior quality product, and then it is not aligned with their ethos. So that's really, I think we're aiming for the top quality and satisfy the requirements that they look for the leather goods. So that's our approach.
So the story takes you so far, but you've also got to sort of deliver on the material. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
I see some things on the table, Patrick, so I'm going to have to ask, as we talk about product and...
Of course. So for us, we kind of view the brands in terms of volume versus value. So in the initial phases, we'll work with brands that kind of more so are low volume, but of course high value based brands to increase the perceived value of the material in the first instance. However, because of our technological bandwidth, we're in the privileged position where we've already engaged every single major sector from automotive and aerospace all the way through down to apparel. So some of these early prototypes, so this goes into a £500,000 supercar, and this is essentially where the seatbelt then goes into. So this will be an 18 to 24 month development cycle, but of course we can't pin the hopes of our whole company based on the automotive industry. So initially we'll have products on shelves this year with a particular biomaterials business, and we'll launch some accessories and products. And then from there we'll have a calendar into 2024 with sneaker brands. So some of those hardest specifications to meet will then be triggered at later points within our complete cycle.
I think there's two tribes that exist at the moment. There's the people who are really passionate about animal-based materials, leather, and there's the people who are really passionate about plastic and vegan leathers. But I think what we're all trying to offer is a third option, and I think brands perhaps need to do a bit more digging. There's been a lot of materials that are very heavy in plastics, and as long as brands can do a little bit more digging into what's actually going into the materials, we can start empowering more of the innovators that are trying to get away from plastics. Interestingly, Ford was looking at protein-based materials in automotive back in the 30s. Then petrochemicals came around and wiped it off the map. And so basically 100 years later, we're now trying to turn the tables again in favor of protein-based materials. It just takes a bit of patience because fashion is so designer-led, and we're trying to come at it from a more scientific angle. So these feedback loops are really important for us small brands to have with the fashion designers.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I think I also heard that the first ever car was electric as well. So like all of those like really early innovations that just, you know, we're now coming back around to discover, and everyone's like, yeah, we did try that. It just wasn't the right time, or something else that came along. And I think, you know, as you talk about those sort of, you know, like meeting those sort of challenges, and as you sort of think about scale up and what your sort of journey looks like, you know, what are the main challenges that you do face? And is there anything that would make it go faster, or is it just about sort of patience and time? I think a really good example that we like to give is that something like Lycra as a material, which was actually based on existing sort of synthetic knowledge, took about 10 years to develop, and it's taken like 60 or 70 years to get to the level of market penetration that it's got now. So as we think about and put this into context, we're like at the very beginning of this field. And, you know, we are with so many companies, we are dealing with really complex technologies, living systems. So it's actually, you know, decades, and we're sort of only at the beginning of a very exciting journey. But I'd love to hear like how you're thinking about, yeah, where you're going to go next, and sort of what those challenges are and what you're excited about.
Scale up, it's definitely the way to go. And the challenge we have, I think the biggest challenge is our scientists' time to making a sample for the brand, or dedicate that time and energy to improve our material and you know, scale up the system itself. So it's always like a constant battle. You know, how are we going to balance that? And you know, at the same time, there's investment pressure. The investor wants you to have some collaboration, have some revenue with the brand, but at the same time, you know, you're still early stage company and trying to perfect your material and working with them. So it's really a lot of you know, pulling from different directions, trying to make things work. So I think juggling that is a challenge. So it really requires the brand to be fully on board with you, to understand that you have this constraint, so they really value the product that you're giving them, and then they, you know, provide as much feedback as possible so that we can feed into our design cycle and tell our scientists, engineers to how to improve those materials to meet the requirements that's set by the brand collaborators.
Exactly what Yudi said about it takes a lot of resources to make samples, and so you're pulled in many directions. As far as scaling, yesterday I'm incredibly sore because we just moved our lab back to Bermondsey along the Beer Mile in a place called the Leather Market, actually. So we're turning leather to the leather market. I think also press is an important piece. So putting smaller companies on the map, it's something we're looking to do to sort of attract brand partners to us, because you only have limited bandwidth and you want to make sure you work with the right brands who are patient, putting sustainability forward, the right tone, and small volume, high price point to start off with, and then going up to higher scale. But yeah, there's a lot to do with very little time.
Yeah, the biggest thing for us is quite similar to what the guys have said as well, which is essentially trying to balance commercial traction and pipeline coverage with service level. Too much service level, not enough commercial traction, then of course you're essentially still having a hobby, never creating a business. But then of course too much commercial traction and not service level, you run the risk of course of shutting those doors, and they're extremely difficult to then pry open again. So again, it's obviously building up the particular samples required for the particular brands is currently the biggest challenge. But for us, our guiding belief when it comes to our scaling is that the winners in the space will be determined not by the technology that can make one specification 1,000 times, but more importantly, can make 1,000 specifications at least once. And for us to be able to do this, we have to own the manufacturing facility so that we can not only incrementally improve the process efficiency over time, but embed the necessary flexibility to scale different specifications to service different sectors of the leather industry.
Yeah, I think I wanted to just touch on something you said there around, because it was a question, I mean, we've talked about scaling a little bit, but just thinking about how, whilst these waste streams offer potentially, a abundance of material that means you can get to scale and sort of service that that need. But as you think about the practicalities of actually scaling production of your materials, and I know this is a different point, and it's something that everyone starts to think about, and I'm sure your perspectives on it will change as the company grows. But you say you think about producing your own facilities. Is it about finding a contract manufacturer, or having a pilot plant and then finding someone you can license it to? Like, how are you thinking about? And we talked about local. So just how we think about producing these materials to have impact at scale.
I think for us, because we're located on the Bermondsey Beer Mile, TJ will just swing by and pick up a bucket of grain, and that suffices for now. But we would be looking to produce a pilot facility, same as the brewers underneath the railway arches, because for companies it's important to develop our process and then look to third parties so that we can protect the IP on it. So that's the stage we're currently looking at. I think a lot of companies in the past 10 years have really struggled with scale, so the companies that are coming out now are really focused on delivering at scale as we grow, and in a much more quick way.
Yeah, we have some exciting news to share over the coming months, but we are building our facility, and that will be operational in September, October time of this year. So exciting times ahead. But in the context of using a particular waste stream, there's three really core reasons that we believe leveraging this waste stream really allows us to scale. First is, again, we get to delegate a lot of the burdensome CapEx intensive portions of our process to our suppliers. The second is aggressively reducing that cost curve to reach price parity as quickly as possible. Because as we know, the precursor to change is mass adoption. For mass adoption to occur, we need price parity and quality of performance of products that people are typically accustomed to. And finally, again, and apologies I keep saying this, is the technological bandwidth that this particular waste stream presents to our scaling methodology that really excites us.
Great. And I think I wanted just to touch on one thing that we think about a lot, and then if we've got time, we'll throw it open to the audience if anyone's got questions. But going back to the slide we had around the sort of different eras of materials, and when we look at sort of referencing back, sort of synthetics that we're referencing, naturals, and at the moment, we've obviously talked about all of your materials in the sort of context of leather alternatives, and they are alternatives in that they come, in a sheet form. You can put a black calf grain on it and make it look like an animal material. But as we think about, they are not don't have the same constraints as animal leather. What are you excited about sort of for that next generation when we move beyond sort of maybe referencing all the time and think about what the capabilities and sort of future opportunities are of the materials inherently?
I like to start to say that leather is an incredible material. It's super versatile. It allows a lot of design possibilities. So if we want to create a material that is at the same level, we need to allow the designers to. If we want to create a material that is at the same level, we need to allow the designers to dream about what they can do with this material. So luckily we can do, because first of all, collagen as a ingredient is highly compatible with all the know-hows in the leather industry. And second of all, we can recreate a lot of the textures, the colors, thickness, etc. that is desired in the leather industry as well. And also beyond what leather can offer, I think each individual hide, animal hide, it's a life of an animal, and then they have this scarring and imperfections on the material. Also, it's constrained by this peculiar shape of the animal, but we can do a much more, like a homogeneous, high quality, no imperfections, and on row. So that will be, highly desirable as compared to, a traditional hide, each pieces like that.
They're the basic things where cows don't come in squares, but we can create shapes of materials that minimize offcuts. You play around with thickness, the dyeing process, all these sort of basic things that you can up the ante and impart unique scents. So in the same way you pick the exterior color of your car, you could pick the interior scent as well. And then you can think about going even beyond leather, because we build from the ground up, so you can impart unique qualities that cows just can't from the bottom down. What about imparting circuit boards and other technologies into the material? A lot of leather doesn't really go through the wash, so you can impart electronics and branch off of alternative leathers into packaging or other textiles. So it's really exciting, but I think for the start, we need to focus on building a really great material and then level up over the coming years into the more funky bits.
I think for us, the exciting thing is when we can start moving away from the use of the term leather alternative, because ultimately the real reason we use this is for that associative response, because for us as consumers, the minute we say biomaterial is a bit of a nebulous term, and it's very difficult to understand what that truly means. So until we can really move away from the term leather alternative while we're still advertising leather, and of course, as we know, an alternative typically sparks emotions and feelings of a lesser based product. And I think until we transcend into a properly regulated and labeled product, I think we're still going to have a huge issue of really trying to get consumers on board to this particular sector.
Great. I think we've got a couple of minutes if anyone's got a question in the audience. If not, I can definitely fill that time, so don't. So there isn't pressure, but does anybody... Oh, yeah.
Hi, I'm Elsa. I'm a sustainability consultant at Sandcraft. And I think it's following on from the question that you just asked. Do you still see a fashion industry where animal products, animal leather plays a role, or do you think it's going to move completely beyond that and that will become useless, I suppose?
I think we can look to the food sector. So for the past 10 years, there's been a ton of investment into alternative protein in food. Probably the best product to look at is alternative dairy. So your Oatleys, your plant-based milks, staple in 40% of American households now. So now is the wave of biomaterials. I think animals will always play a role, but hopefully we can shrink that by a lot over the coming decades. It is a very long play, though. But we're sort of following in the footsteps of the food sector.
And I think how the brand approach this is not like animal, non-animal. It's more like holistically looking at the impact of the material. So being vegan does not necessarily mean it's better, like Amy has previously said. And they're looking at the supply chain, the transparency, all the impact associated with making that material, and finally go to the consumer's hand. So that's what they really care about. In the particular section in luxury, and we actually see there, there's lots of curiosity and demand from those brands to work with innovative startups, and then definitely they're active players. And also at the same time, I think the animal-based leather is their cash cow. They're literally selling more and more products as well. But at the same time, they have this pressure to reduce their environmental impact. So they have to sort of combine this together, and definitely. They cannot just say, okay, animal product bad because, lots of the revenue coming from that. They have to have a much more sophisticated system and thinking how we can adopt a new innovative material.
Leather's going to stay around for a long, long time. But from the conversations that we've had with customers, typically they're assessing it in two vectors. First, is it a leather alternative, which is typically a binary answer. Yes, it's like leather, or no, it's not like leather. Then the exciting, specifically for us, is the second vector, which is biomaterials, with its own new narrative, story, features, and benefits. And ultimately, brands are kind of splitting into those different, depending on, do they speak to a classical customer, or is it more of a trend-based consumer? And ultimately, that's what's going to design and see where the sector is going to split off over time.
I think we're out of time, but I'm sure you guys are going to get mobbed in the breaks, so you can all question them individually. But thank you so much for joining me today and for such a great discussion. And thank you guys.
I think that's it, guys. We're going to just have a coffee and coffee and Please come in. There's a couple of seats over here if you want to squeeze in. And there's a few at the front here as well. Okay. Okay, everybody. Thanks again. I hope you all had a nice coffee and croissant and everything. So next, I'm going to introduce you to Lauren Bartley, who's heads up sustainability at Ganni, and talk about fabrics of the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Over to you.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Lauren. So I work for a Danish brand called Ganni. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I have a couple of slides. At Ganni, we're based in Denmark. Our main office is in Copenhagen, but we also now have an office in London, which is awesome. And we would describe ourselves as a state of mind more than a form of dressing. But we are predominantly a women's wear brand. But today I'm going to talk to you more about our responsibility work. So that's the work that I head up at Ganni, but more specifically a program that we have called Fabrics of the Future. And then first and foremost, it's really important to say that we would preface anything that we talk about on responsibility or sustainability by saying we're not a sustainable brand. And this now seems to have also become like a very good greenwashing tactic, but I promise you that's not what it is here either. We started saying we're not a sustainable brand because we wanted to be able to talk about the work that we were doing without being called out for greenwashing or saying that we were doing it for marketing. So at Ganni, we really feel like it's our moral obligation to be the most responsible version of ourselves, but we also need to educate our customers who are not always very well informed on sustainability or some of the issues in the fashion industry. And we also need to, first and foremost, actually also educate our own employees who work for a fashion brand, but maybe also don't know some of the challenges that we have around sustainability or challenges within the industry. So when we ever talk about this subject, we will always say we're not a sustainable brand, but we are focused on becoming the most responsible version of ourselves. And for us, that means talking about things, but being honest, not perfect. So we talk about what's going well, but we also talk about the challenges that we're facing. And we also put out very publicly every single goal that we have around responsibility, both social and environmental. And we report on that progress every year in our annual responsibility report, which we actually just launched a few weeks ago. So I have a slide at the end, and I really encourage you to check it out. It's not really your typical sustainability report, or I would say that obviously, but it really isn't, because if you read it, the way that we talk about it is just how you would talk to a friend, and we talk about stuff like, this did really well, but actually we didn't quite meet this goal, or we're off track, and these are the reasons why, to also shed a light and not try and like cover things up when they're maybe not running as they should. Which I actually think fits very perfectly into working with fabric innovation and that mindset of we need to try with these innovations, but sometimes they won't always work. And sometimes we need to be patient and be a part of the process with the startup or the innovator to actually also have a responsibility to make these innovations successful. So, just a bit of a background. So we started the initiative called Fabrics of the Future at Ganni back in 2019. And it wasn't born out of the idea to launch products on the market. It was actually born to inspire people within the company and change people's perspectives around responsible materials. So we had this, just a whiteboard, Fabrics of the Future, and had like all of these like crazy materials on there, like things that were like honestly disgusting, like bacteria that was like molding, like you name it. It was like not meant to be anything that we were actually thinking about using, but more to inspire the teams of this is what's out there and this looks like this now, but this will probably become the future. And you also need to bear in mind that if we use cotton now, we're switching to organic cotton. You can't stay still at organic cotton. You need to then start thinking about what's going to come after. So that was the idea. And then we realized, probably like many of you, that during the pandemic, there were a lot of innovators and a lot of investment that started happening. And a lot of these weird and wonderful materials that we had on our wall were suddenly becoming something that felt like it could be a reality. And at the same time, just in the background, we had already then switched a lot of our materials to the most responsible version out there. So the organic was then the cotton was either organic or recycled, the polyester was recycled, the wool was recycled, or like you name it, the things were happening. But then we started to think like, okay, maybe we are actually in a position where we can invest in these innovations and try and bring them to life. And a very Ganni way of approaching things is once we are set that we want to do that, we would then actually put it out there very publicly because we want that public accountability, even if we're not there yet. So we actually put out a press release to talk about fabrics of the future and our intentions to actually launch these innovations out into the market and start working with them. And then it just holds us very accountable on a public stage. So then everybody in the office then is like more motivated to actually make it work, which is not necessarily morally correct, but it does work. And then from 2021 onwards, it really just sort of flew. So with the first launch that we did was with Vigea, which is a leather alternative, and we launched some shoes. And then we signed up with around 5 other innovators, and we either made long-term partnership agreements where we committed that we would work with the material, or we actually trialed and launched a few products out on the market. So last summer, we had a launch with Milo, which is another leather alternative, with Circulose, and also with infinited fiber, so also looking at like fiber-to-fiber technologies. And then this year, we actually, alongside working with other external innovators, we started looking in-house at our own production. And we actually noticed that we produce and sell a lot of T-shirts. And with those T-shirts, when you have the production, it actually generates a lot of scrap material. So about 20% of the T-shirt made, there's like waste that's generated. And then we have worked now with a producer in Portugal that basically picks up all of those scraps and then blends it with organic cotton and actually makes new Ganni T-shirts, which is really awesome because then we have sort of 2 strands of the work. One where we have the external innovators and the startups, and now trying to do our own thing in-house. And what really started as something to inspire a lot of people internally, we now see is actually it's going to be essential that we need to invest in these fabric innovations in order to be able to meet the goals that we have. But specifically, we have a very ambitious 50% carbon reduction goal by 2027. And if we don't invest in these fabric innovations, we will not meet this goal. And that is sort of the messaging and the mindset that we have. So why? Why do we also want to invest in these innovations? Because materials account for over 56% of our carbon emissions, and we have a 50% reduction goal. And here, it's a little bit out of date now, but you can see our top 14 highest carbon emitting materials. So our focus within Fabrics of the Future is to find alternatives for the top 14. And right now, it's to focus on the top 2. So leather. We have made a commitment to phase out virgin leather by the end of this year. And we are placing all of our bets on the replacement of virgin leather being with these materials of the future, fabrics of the future, and leather alternatives, which, as some of you probably know in this room, a lot of these leather alternatives are not there yet, and they maybe shouldn't be compared to leather as we know it. So we also need to see these materials as something new and not something that's a direct replacement for a material that we've been using for many, many years. The second one is organic cotton. So we produce a lot of organic cotton clothing, and now it's becoming like a very high carbon emitter for us. So investing in these fiber-to-fiber recycling technologies is also our second priority. And then it goes down, and of course, like we also want to invest in other innovations too, look at other materials that we are using in our portfolio, and essentially like work down the list and find replacements for what we're doing right now. So the strategy. So for this year and also last year, we have 30 innovations in the pipeline. And actually here is the picture of the original Fabrics of the Future board that we had in the office. But yeah, so we have 30 innovations that we're currently exploring. And we have an ambition that 6 of them need to launch throughout this year. And that could be a very small launch. It could be 3 pieces, it could be 30, or it could be 300. And that's why Ganni is quite well positioned to work with future innovations, because we don't have high requirements for volume. So we are in a position that we can just launch 3 products and that be okay as a starting point. But where we want to get to is that by 2024, 5% of the materials that we use are produced with Fabrics of the Future innovations. And then by 2025, 10% of the materials that we use are produced with material innovation. And what we mean by that is that it's really nice that we can have these 6 launches, but they shouldn't just be these capsule collections that we launch and never do anything with again. We need to actually make sure that they succeed and they become part of our material portfolio. So we want our design teams in-house to be able to look at these future innovations and then just pick from them like they would any other material. So we really see that within the responsibility team, it's our responsibility to also work with the innovators and make these innovations succeed and not just have a one-off capsule collection that's heavily marketed and PR'd and then nothing happens. And then the vision for 2025 is, that we want to invest in these innovations that will change the fashion industry as we know it. And invest doesn't always mean financially invest in Ganni's case, but it means making commitments. So we also know that a lot of these startups and innovators rely on funding. And in order to get funding, they need to tell their investors who wants to work with them. And we're very willing to put our name forward and say, we commit to working with you in some capacity for 3 years if it will help you get the investment and funding that you need. And that's, something that we have around 6 partnership agreements like that now. And then I have a very nice success story to share with you. So Renewcell, they have a product called Circulose. So this is like a fiber-to-fiber technology. And just to show you then how it's kind of started in the evolution, and in an ideal world, this is where we would want all Fabrics of the Future to go. So we found Renewcell through Fabrics of the Future, and then we tested using the Circulose product in our light woven pants. The composition was only 15% Circulose. So for us, it's a start, but it's also not really good enough. So in the next iteration, we tried to increase then the composition to 40% Circulose, which was great. We've managed to launch that in some shirts that come out in a couple of weeks' time. And then now, actually, we see that Circulose can be part of just our strategy moving forward, and we can actually use it in denim, in jersey, and woven and knits, and it's actually just part of Ganni's main collection. So if you know fashion, then you know that it kind of works a year in advance. So for the next 4 collections that we're producing, there will be an element of Circulose, and we're trying to increase the composition or the amount of Circulose in each of the products that we launch collections onwards. So for us, that's like a really, really good success story and something we've managed to really push through both our teams internally, but also externally as well. So Ganni we have our own stores and our own website, but actually we have 500 wholesale partners. So we're also very reliant on them liking what we produce and also buying into it. And in the case of Circulose, it's actually worked extremely well. A second case study I have for you, which is quite interesting and very topical, and I think we can't shy away from the elephant in the room, that these innovations are typically far more expensive than the materials that we know today. So in most cases, we're looking at materials that are 3 times more expensive than what we would pay for the conventional alternative. And for us, that's kind of okay, because we can take on that cost, but also hope that when the innovation scales, the price will come down. And we also need to be patient with that. But we had a really interesting experiment where we were launching our first hero Ganni bag called the Boo Bag a few weeks ago. And we produced this bag in the top right in multiple colors, and it was all made out of recycled leather. But at the same time, we were experimenting with a material innovation called Oho Skin, which is a bio-based leather alternative using oranges and cacti. Really, really awesome. And then we had a crazy idea of, could we actually produce the hero bag in the Oho Skin? But it's also in black, and it actually looks just like the recycled leather. So if you're shopping on Ganni.com, you really wouldn't know the difference between these two bags. In store, I would say actually the Oho Skin bag looks much better than the recycled leather bag, but on e-com, you can't really see hand feel or anything like that. But we actually launched both of them at the same time, and the innovative one is 600 krona more expensive than the recycled leather one. So that's like £70. And actually 20% of our customers paid a premium for the Oho Skin, which is really, really awesome when you actually consider that the bags look so similar. And you could see it as like, okay, 80% weren't willing to pay, but actually we want to see it in a very positive light, that actually have two bags that look pretty much the same, but one has a responsibility story and a story around innovation and is actually managing to succeed. And I think that's just such a good sign for future innovations, and something that our CEO was very happy with. So that's always good. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of it from me. I think I would just leave it with that we have the responsibility report where we talk about a lot of these fabric innovations, and we also talk about the progress that we're making on a number of areas. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks so much. It's great to learn about Ganni and what goes on behind the scenes. So thanks so much. So next we're going to have a panel with Emily from True Global and Louisa from the Earthshot Prize, and I'll be moderating it. So yeah, come up on stage. Lost Louisa. Oh, she's back there. And we're going to talk about accelerating material innovations. Thank you both for being part of this panel. I guess the best way to start is if you can maybe introduce a little bit about yourselves and what your organizations do. Yeah, starting with Louisa.
Hi everyone, I'm Louisa from the Earthshot Prize. I work in the investment and innovation team. We're a global environmental prize and platform, and our mission is to find and scale the best solutions in the world that are tackling the biggest environmental challenges today. So we've categorized those into 5 Earthshots: fix our climate, protect and restore nature, revive our oceans, clean our air, and build a waste-free world. And every year we receive around 1,000 nominations from brilliant nominators like the Mills Fabrica. And we have a very rigorous selection process, whittling them down to the 15 finalists and 5 winners, each of which will receive £1 million.
Hi everybody, my name is Emily and I work for True, which is a consumer and retail focused investment and innovation firm based here in London. We are also a B Corp, which is pretty relevant for today. We have a real responsibility to invest in sustainable companies going forwards. True has 3 areas to the business. Firstly, a venture fund, which is where I sit. We invest from pre-seed through to Series A. We have a larger private equity fund that can invest up to 50 million in more scaled consumer brands. And then finally, an innovation consultancy business that helps huge retailers around the world to drive their technical innovation. And a lot of that now is around how do they create a more circular and sustainable business. And we can help them by making introductions to some of these amazing innovators that we meet.
Great. I think what's interesting is actually this time last year, we had Shellworks, which was one of the investments from True, on this panel, and we had Nopla, who was the winner of this year's Earthshot Prize, also on the panel as well. And also we've got Nopla, which I'm sure Louisa will talk about a little bit later, downstairs in our innovation gallery, where you can try some of the seaweed drinks, let's say, ginger shots.
Sounds delicious.
Seaweed packaging ginger shots. But first of all, I just wanted to just ask, what role do you think your organizations play in really accelerating new gen materials?
Do you want me to go first?
Yep.
Cool. So I've just touched on it slightly in the intro, but I think True plays kind of two kind of symbiotic roles. Firstly, from an investment standpoint, I have an amazing mandate to go out there and invest behind some of these amazing innovators that are coming up. We invest from pre-seed through to Series A, so we can really be there as part of that initial journey and help with the commercial strategy as well going forward. And then on the other side, our innovation consultancy business has relationships at the C-suite level to really drive some of this change. So part of that is people like M&S, Primark, Abercrombie & Fitch coming to us saying, can you help us with X and Y? And we go out and find the solutions. And the other side of it is, hey, guys, we're seeing so much amazing innovation in this particular space. You need to hear about it. Come to one of our events. We've actually got Saltico speaking for us next week as well to really drive the adoption at the corporate level, which, as we've just been hearing about Ganni, is really important too.
And similar to True, the Earthshot also has two strategic pillars. And the first is all around scaling, and we obsess around scaling and maximizing the impact of our innovators. And the second is all around spotlighting. So how do we tell the stories of these incredible entrepreneurs and the hero's journey that they go on? And that's really to try and inspire new audiences and start a bigger movement. So if you're a business, can you integrate this product into your supply chain? If you're an investor, can you fund these technologies? If you're a graduate, can you go and work for one of these companies, or can you start your own company? And lastly, if you're a consumer, can you vote with your wallet by purchasing these products?
Thanks. So Louisa, so in which sort of category in Earthshot are you seeing the most potential, and where are the gaps, would you say?
So year on year, broadly, we see the most number of nominations coming in for the Nature Earthshot and the least in the Cleaner Air Earthshot. So clearly, we really need more innovation around tackling air pollution. But within each one of the Earthshots, we have 3 key priority areas. So for Fix Our Climate, that's transitioning to a just and equitable clean energy future, addressing non-carbon dioxide greenhouse gas emissions, and tackling hard-to-abate sectors. And we really see, in the clean energy transition, we have all the technologies that we really need to get to net zero. So that's mainly solar, wind, electric vehicles, and long-duration energy storage. So that's really around innovation in terms of the business models rather than new technologies. Whereas in the hard-to-abate sectors, which is still a third of our emissions, we're really lacking the innovations and new technologies needed to get us to that credible 1.5-degree pathway.
Okay, thanks. And then so back to you, Emily. So what do you think the key qualities are for the next sort of new gen materials that you are looking for from an investment side?
Yeah, I think firstly, there's a few kind of variables that we need to see across all of the investments we make, whether or not they're sustainable materials or not. So firstly, is there a big enough market for this company to make a big impact? Is there a problem that actually needs to be solved? We see a lot of people that are creating slightly strange solutions to things. Is this a solution that is going to make much impact? And then most importantly, and is this the team of people that are going to be able to make this solution work? And especially at the early stage, never underestimate the importance of the founders. We love to see people who have kind of complementary skill sets within the founding team and that have the genuine tenacity to make it work, because it is not going to be an easy journey, just trust me. And then specific to the sustainable kind of next generation material space, I think there's 3 things that I look for. One is IP of some sort. It's what is making you different? Can you protect it? It doesn't always mean you need a patent, but is there a trade secret that makes you different? The second part is some initial traction. So I know we were just listening to Ganni there about how it doesn't always need to be somebody changing their entire supply chain to a next generation material and having loads of offtake agreements, but that initial indication that there is product market fit. And then finally, the commitment that whatever the technology is, at some point will be able to be price parity with what we currently see. And I think that's super, super important to create sort of long-term change.
I think the price parity is what everyone's really looking for. And then what you touched on this earlier, but what role do you think that brands and corporates, have on helping influence this innovation?
It's such a chicken and egg sort of situation because brands maybe don't want to use a sustainable kind of material until they know you can satisfy it at scale, and also that the price is right. But in order to get the price right, you often need the investment, but the investors don't want to invest until you've seen the brand, and just nobody's talking to each other in this situation. So I think like across the industry, we need to see more commitment and conviction that we're going to work together to make this happen. So from a brand and corporate perspective, those guys like Ganni who are willing to kind of put themselves out there, make public claims and have their name attached to some of these early stage innovations gives enough product market fit for me to suddenly kind of tick that box and maybe get my investment committee over the line. So yeah, I see that as kind of being where they can really help.
Yeah, definitely. I see the brands like Ganni, like you said, and Pangaea are really sort of like putting their money where their mouth is and really investing in that. And I think that's super important. And then I guess over to you, Louisa. How do you help, the winners, let's say from the Earthshot Prize, help them sort of scale to get sort of market ready? There's a fellowship program. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned we have 15 finalists every year, and they go through a 9-month fellowship program. And to begin with, we sit down and we identify one key growth initiative that we're really going to work on throughout the program. And we kick-started with a week-long retreat, so we bring all the finalists together and we lay on a lot of interesting workshops and inspiring talks by other entrepreneurs who have gone through these high-growth journeys of their own. And crucially, we have this networking event where we bring together 200 of the most useful connections in London that they can meet and kind of organize this big speed dating event. But crucially, most of the work we do is with our Global Alliance. So this is a group of mission-aligned companies, such as IKEA, Microsoft, Deloitte, Conservation International. And they are a group who are committed to help support our finalists in whatever way they need to help scale. So that could be through pilot programs or partnerships, helping with their IP, helping with their legal, helping with mentorship, whatever it takes to scale in that 9 months.
Great. So then I guess, you were saying about this as well just now, but yeah, you both seem to be focusing more on collaboration over competition. I mean, I think competition's healthy because it helps people drive forward, but I think collaboration's more important in this sort of sector, what we're doing. But what is the importance, of this shift in mindset from your side? To Emily and then Louisa?
Yeah, sure. I completely agree with you. I think there needs to be some competition because it helps make everybody a little bit move quicker and a bit more innovatively. But I think we've all just come to the realization that no one company can do this by themselves, and we all need to work together if we're actually going to make an impact. I would say, like, whatever the next generation material is in, whether it's in textiles, manufacturing, food, the markets are big enough that there can be multiple winners. So there should really not need to have, to be super competitive with one another. But at least for us, it's all about how can we make the largest impact. And with multiple innovators talking about the same problem, it should start making the mindsets of brands change as well and realize that there's a problem that they should probably go out there and solve. So that's the way we look at it.
And the Earthshot Prize is actually modelled on JF Kennedy's moonshot, where he decided to put a man on the moon in 10 years. And the way they were going to do that was to start this innovation revolution and inspire an entire nation to get together and help do that. And there's this great story where JF Kennedy visits NASA to see how progress is going, and he's walking along the corridor, and he stops the janitor and he says, "What's your role?" And the janitor says, "I'm helping to put a man on the moon, Mr. President." And I think that's really like what Prince William wanted as a kind of model of collaboration, this kind of all hands on deck approach of how we're going to come together collectively to solve this climate crisis within 7 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. So where do you see the biggest impact from the innovations coming today? Is there a new sector or a new industry where you see all this new innovation coming from, or new materials?
From where I sit, I see a lot within the packaging space and within the textile space, both super exciting industries. And the bit of technology that I think is really exciting and kind of draws on what the guys were talking about in the leather summit earlier, is that I love to see those materials that are fully compostable as well. So you're using plant-based materials, but actually they can compost and feed the soil, which will create the next generation of materials again. It doesn't include those plastic derivatives because I think that makes, the largest scale change. For us in our portfolio, we've got Shellworks who does something very similar with their sort of plastic packaging that can be completely home compostable for the beauty industry. We also have some amazing innovators in the room, like Biofluff, who is completely home compostable as well. So that's the area that I'm really excited about. And then in terms of new industries or where I'm looking for new innovation, I think personal care and beauty is a really interesting space. So we put so many harmful chemicals on our face regularly that goes into the waterways, and we really just don't talk about it. We just want to look cute. There's also just so much waste water that we're like transporting around the world in shampoo or conditioner. We don't really talk about that. So we've got a couple in our portfolio that are trying to solve some of these issues. We've got a brand called Floose, which is the world's first first flushable sanitary pad that kind of has innovative sort of technology that it just breaks apart like toilet paper. And we've got a beauty brand in our portfolio that's using sort of plant-based ingredients to create the next generation of sort of beauty products too.
To you, Louisa?
Yeah, sure. So 95% of our materials are still coming from cotton and synthetic fibers. And one of our finalists, LanzaTech, are using fermentation to replace petrochemical-based synthetic fibers like polyester. And yet it has the same properties, same performance, and is re-fermentable at the end of life. So it's circular. And we really need to start moving away from these petrochemical-based synthetic fibers. Obviously, we're using a huge amount of fossil fuels, but also a massive amount of energy used in the manufacturing, huge amounts of water. A lot of nitrogen oxide is produced. That's a greenhouse gas that's 310 times more potent than carbon dioxide. And yet the world is still hugely reliant on these kind of cheap mass products. So we really need a solution that can scale today, and that's what LanzaTech is working on.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's one of the big focuses as well. And I think the consumer is starting to understand a little bit the difference between a bioplastic and a biomaterial, which is natural, because yeah, nature hasn't got a dustbin, and so we shouldn't have a dustbin really either. And everything should be able to go back into the, to the ecosystem and give back again. So I think we're wrapping up sort of now. So I just want to ask, with all the innovators that you meet, what do you see as the biggest challenge, and what word of advice would you give them from your side, Emily?
I think the main one is just scaling and scaling efficiently. You can get to sort of an initial product relatively fast, but then how do you get it from where you are now to creating massive impact? And so my piece of advice would be just surround yourselves with amazing investors, advisors, brands who understand your story and can really kind of support you in different ways. So for example, have sort of climate-focused advisors, have people in the science field who can help you to scale, and then have those investors or advisors who are more commercial and can make introductions to the right brands.
I think from where we stand, the biggest issue, the biggest challenge that we see is that these startups and the corporates that we work with, they speak two completely different languages. So as early on as possible, try and find that champion within an organization that you want to work with. Start super early talking to them, and just keep building those relationships. It's never too soon to do that.
And I think the important thing is, as well, is it's a journey. Everyone thinks it's a little button you press and everything's perfect, but it's not. And I think Amy touched on it earlier. It took 10 years to invent Lycra, but it took 60 years to come, front and center. So yeah, just I think remember that it's a journey and it's not going to happen overnight. But yeah, I want to say thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next up, we're going to be, thanks for that, guys. And next up, we're going to have a talk, Making Luxury Kinder to Our Planet. Passing over to Tiffany Dark, who's going to be moderating it, and I'll let you do the introductions.
Yeah, hi. Do we have Hannah, Keith, and Chet here? I hope we do. Oh, hi, Keith. Hannah. Is Chet? Oh,
There's
here's
Chet.
Great. Looking great.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tiffany. I'm a luxury brand strategist and communicator. And we've got three really amazing people on the panel today to discuss making luxury kinder to our planet. Now, one of the reasons why, without stating the obvious, this is important is that luxury has big margins. So luxury has the capacity to focus on sustainability as opposed to, say, celebrity marketing more than other parts of the industry. And then also because luxury, of course, is very influential in the industry. So the more mainstream fashion and apparel industries always look to luxury to lead. So we have today Hannah, who's coming from Farfetch, who can talk to us from the retail aspect. Keith, who is coming from ISCO, so he can talk to us from the manufacturing aspect. And Chet, who is a star up-and-coming designer, whose designs are worn for everyone from Kylie Jenner and covered in Vogue and W. So looking forward to hearing from you both, from all three of you. So Hannah, Farfetch has got quite a big vision for how it wants to be more sustainable in the future. And a lot of that, I know, is about being more conscious in terms of design and product. How are you planning to get them there?
Yeah, great question. So at Farfetch, we've set 2030 goals that are quite ambitious, that we are holding ourselves accountable to. And I can kind of walk you through. We have key pillars to our strategy. So we have 4 key pillars. The first one is our cleaner pillar. So that's all about reducing our carbon impact over time. And our 2030 goal for that is to be climate positive. Next, we have our positively inclusive pillar, which is all about championing minority designers. And our 2030 goal for that one is to be the leader in positive inclusion. Then we have our positively circular pillar, which is all about extending the life of our clothes over time. And with that, we offer circular services to all of our customers. The first one is Second Life, which is a resale service where Farfetch customers can trade in luxury handbags in return for Farfetch credit. And the second one is Farfetch Refresh, which is a donation service where Farfetch customers can donate unwanted clothes in return for Farfetch credit as well.
Can I just quickly ask you how many of them do that?
At the donation service, at the moment, it is a quite small percentage at the moment. It's just in the UK and the US, but we're kind of hoping to grow that as well. And then the last service that we have is we were running a restoration service called Farfetch Fix with the Restory, but sadly they had to shut, so we will be picking that up again soon. And then lastly is our conscious pillar, which is the pillar that I'm working on, which is all about sustainability at product level and trying to scale the supply of conscious products on the marketplace and also try to push the demand for more positive consumption. So our 2030 goal for that one is to sell 100% conscious products. So yeah, there's some big goals there, but we're chipping away at them. Yeah.
So Keith, ISCO has a revolutionary approach to fabric. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it and how it's made?
Sure. Hi everyone. So for those of you who don't know ISCO, we're a denim manufacturer based in Turkey, where we have offices all over the globe. We have about 25,000 products in our portfolio. We've always been heavily focused on sustainability. But what we're trying to do now, what our focus is for the future, is to use as little virgin resources as possible, and that includes virgin fibres in our fabrics. So we have a strong stance on using more recycled materials, and we really want to do that at a scalable level. At the moment, most of our products, I think about 80% of our products contain between 80 to 100% recycled materials. But focusing on not just using the composition as a sustainability goal, but also durability. And I think a few people on stage today were talking about that as a really important goal for them. We want fashion, especially in the luxury sector, to last longer. So being able to have those sustainability fibres, but not compromise on quality or performance is a key thing for us. So we have our main product at the moment is called Control Z, which is kind of, when you think about Control Z, it's the keyboard shift that makes you go back. And that's what we're trying to do, kind of go back and try and undo what we've kind of done in the past and reuse those fibres that were already in the environment. So doing that at scale and being able to provide those kind of quality fabrics to our customers is something that's really important.
And can I quickly ask you, what is the luxury sector's response to your pitch?
I mean, I think because durability is such a focus, and from the luxury side, from a circularity point of view, we want to make sure our fabrics are recycled and recyclable. Oh yeah, that's better. Recycled and recyclable. But again, the focus being on durability, I think one of the things, and I think you mentioned it as well about what Farfetch is doing, being able to resell or rent those kind of those products is really important. So having products that last and are durable is key.
Thank you. So, Chet, so many accolades so far in your career, and I notice you're wearing one of your pieces today. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do. And also, you were the recipient recently of a Smiley Award, so it'd be good to know why you think you won that and what you plan to do with it.
Hi, I'm Chet. Nice to meet you guys. So I am I started off as a knitwear designer, and then kind of now have broadened the horizons to just textiles in general. So there's definitely a lot of capabilities to incorporate sustainability into the work. So it's an ongoing kind of arduous process because it's just not easy to source these materials. And then I was the recipient of the Smiley Award. I actually don't know if it's an award, but I'm going to say it is. I think I got it because I am quite a colorful person and quite happy. So it makes but in all honesty, it was a really interesting process just because they where oh, okay, so it needs to be 95% of all the fibers that you use have to be sustainable. And so that was really tricky to do. And so basically, we had to get all these certificates and everything from our suppliers and yada, yada, yada. It was a very difficult process. But in the end, I think it was a really, really good kind of exercise just to see, okay, how far can we push it to make sure that everything is absolutely beautifully sustainable. It's very, very tricky, and I understand now why companies have a whole department for it because it's horrible, but it's the work. Sorry, it is work worth doing, absolutely. It is very arduous work though.
Was sustainability something that was really important to you when you were setting up or wanting to become a designer, or were you more motivated by creativity and then sort of sustainability was something you thought you had to do?
I think basically there is this idea of sustainability. I think even going to uni, there is a whole aesthetic that is associated with sustainability. It's very grown mushroom looking amorphous shapes, and that's not really my vibe. But I think there's a lot of ways in that you can. For me, it's always about creativity. It's always about creating the aesthetic. And then if there's a way to make that sustainable, that's beautiful. I would rather not kind of be put into a box too early. You know what I mean?
Sometimes those limitations that sustainability brings great creativity as well, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of amazing new materials that are actually so beautiful, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that they're kind of that they're sustainable or that they're like a pleather or something. It's amazing how realistic they can look.
So all three of you work in the luxury sector. So I want to ask you all what advantage you think this confers you. Hannah, do you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. I think, definitely. I think as you touched on, durability is a big thing when it comes to sustainability and when it comes to circularity. And I think the luxury sector does just lend itself more towards durability because the fabrics are really good quality, they've been really well made, and they are investment pieces that can be kept for a long time, that can be handed down, or that can be resold. And then they also, with that, hold their value over time. So I do think that's definitely a big advantage. Just that the clothes are better made and will last for longer.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation that with the price point of luxury, you attach more value to it, and therefore you expect it to last longer and to be made in a really good quality way. So I think that is the most important thing when it comes to the luxury sector, and that's what we're doing. And even though we work with high street fashion and luxury fashion, we make all of our products to last longer and to be durable. But we're a fabric supplier, so there's obviously other elements in the chain that might affect that durability, the stitching or the washing or whatever. So, but we work with our suppliers to make sure that they can use our materials and be able to do all that in a durable and quality assurance way.
And Chet, I mean, I guess your clients are your customers and also, big retailers. How important is sustainability to them?
I think that it's growing and growing, this concern for it, and I think it's definitely becoming more and more important. I think there's a lot of people constantly being like, so is this sustainable, is this sustainable, like asking every single SKU, and so we do have to go through and be like, yes, 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 not this one, not this fiber, blah, 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 continue. So I think it does kind of pique people's interest, like especially like buyers and stuff like that, and for press as well, it's very kind of like people eat it up, you know.
Yeah. So Hannah, you concentrate on the conscious pillar, as you said. We've talked an awful lot about fabric innovation today, but how important is the social sustainability to the business model? How do you? I mean, it's a nice thing, but does it make sense?
Yeah, of course. I think definitely for us, we always look at sustainability under 3 key pillars. So we're looking at people, planet, and animals. And I think, obviously at material level is really important, but the people and the animals are equally as important. So we're always kind of looking at it as a 360-degree view. And we partner really closely with an ethical brand rating agency called Good On You, which basically look at brands from over 1,000 different kind of data points and 100 different sustainability items, and they give this whole rounded sustainability score to each brand. So we work really closely with them just to ensure that we are capturing all levels of sustainability. And with that, we get a people score, we get an animal score, we get a planet score, and then we can communicate that to our customers as well.
But just make that connection between social sustainability and environmental pressure.
Yeah, so I think, I think the two are linked, because in order to be a sustainable brand, you need to meet your environmental goals and also your social goals. You can't just be sustainable from a material perspective or from a carbon perspective and not be treating your workers fairly. I think you need to be meeting them kind of at a 360-degree view in order to be a sustainable brand or to be wanting to make a difference.
Definitely. Also preserving artisanal craft and, in the inheritance of so many of the traditions that we've had as well. It adds to the beauty and creativity, doesn't it?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Keith, you're a brand and marketing communications guy. What are you making of the whole greenwashing versus green hushing climate that we are in right now?
What a question for a PR person. I think, we're a B2B business, so we communicate directly to the brands and retailers that we work with. So there's a certain expectation that we communicate what we're doing from a sustainability point of view, and that it's matched with the actionable things that we're doing for the industry and with our business. So we do communicate what we're doing from a product level, but also, we release our sustainability impact report every year, which goes through all of our key pillars, similar to what you have as well, focusing on people as well as a social sustainability aspect. So we do communicate all of our sustainability initiatives to our customers, because there is that expectation as a supplier that we are doing what we're saying. Everything is third-party verified. We don't go into too much detail unless they want that detail, but there is that expectation from our brands and our retailers that we can communicate that fairly and match what we're doing.
Have you been caught in the storm at any point?
What do you mean? No, we're a big business. ISCO is a big business in Turkey and globally. So there is that expectation that we have to back up what we're saying, and we have very transparent and honest communication with our customers, even with the press. We did a press tour. I brought lots of press over to our factory in Turkey last year. We opened our doors. They came in. They saw all of the factory, everything that we're doing. They asked everyone questions. There was no expectation that they write anything about us. Some of them did, and it was all very positive. But that's what we want to do. We're transparent. We want to make sure that everyone can come in, our brands, customers, the media, and see what we're doing and ask questions.
I'll ask you this personally, but does it frustrate you when you see other people in the sector making big claims that they haven't put the hard yards into
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, like, you know, I haven't worked in, I've been working at ISCO for about 4 years. And I think, you know, my knowledge has grown as I've worked with the business. So you do, now that you've worked on that side, especially on the supplier side, you do notice when people are making claims or they use certain terminology that you're like, hang on, that doesn't really make sense. Or that's a very broad term that you're using. And then you don't see that it's being backed up. It can be frustrating. I think for those who aren't in the know, unfortunately, if you're just a consumer and you don't work in the industry, you might not recognize that as, you know, an issue, or, you know, that people are making false claims.
And Chet, I mean, how many people do you have working for you now?
It's a tiny little baby team. We've got like 3 employees and like 4 interns.
Yeah.
And then we've got like a production. Our production is in Italy and stuff like that, so we talk to them, and then there's a whole lawyers and everything. But the actual team is very, very tiny. It's just, yeah.
I mean, we had some startup guys here earlier, and I think one of the big challenges is taking all of this stuff on is that you just don't have the time or the people power to devote to it.
Yeah. I think for me, the main challenge is like, to bring up an example, like before, in like 2021 or something like that, or 2022, like H&M copied some of our designs, which I honestly like was like, whatever, that's fine. And then, and they used this amazing like recycled yarn, which is like woven from like bottles found in the ocean. Fab, that's amazing. And so I was like, oh cool, we can copy that too then. Like, I was like, amazing. And so we reached out to the manufacturers and we were like, oh, please, can we get some? Like, we would love to partner with you on this. And they were like, oh yeah, minimum order is 1,000 kilograms in one colorway. And I was like, great, that is, where am I gonna put that, first off? Well, I'm not making like, you know, like thousands of units yet. Like, that's not what I want to do, and just have the stock laying around, you know? So I think the bar is set so high, monetarily wise, like for a small brand, it's kind of impossible to be able to like partake in these amazing schemes, you know? So.
Can I just jump in as well? I think, you know, it's exactly like what Chet said. I think it's important for businesses and suppliers to recognize that there are people and young designers who are there, who are trying to do the right thing, but can't, you know, meet those minimum order quantities, or they might not have, you know, the time or the funds or the resource to go and visit the factories and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, we're trying to support young designers. We worked with Chet actually on his last
That's right, you have. Yeah, tell us how that went.
Yeah, so, you know, you go. You have to say that.
No, honestly, I think the beauty of ISCO is that it's like so available. Like, it's literally so readily available for us. It was just easy. It was like a no-brainer. You know, I don't have a denim background, so I kind of was like, I want blue denim or like black denim. But it was nice that they have this whole facility, as well as like they just literally are very supportive. It was a whole just supportive atmosphere. So that case, I didn't have to lift a single finger because it was just there for me, which was amazing.
And we have a division of our business which is called Visionary Minds, which supports designers who are doing something really innovative or something really cool, so they don't have to, you know, meet the minimum order quantities that we normally have. And then we have a project development centre in North Acton in London, which is as a working space. It's also an education space, so people can come and see the best way to wash and finish your denim products in a sustainable way. And we offer that, you know, for all designers. We have workshops with Central St. Martin's, and a lot of the fashion universities come down to do workshops there as well. So it's something we're really passionate about, is the education side of it as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thanks, Keith, for sharing that. So, Hannah, I mean, you work in a sort of similar way in terms of Farfetch represents small boutiques around the world. So, again, you know, that's, you know, businesses with not big firepower or big, you know, people power. How do you support them on this journey?
Yeah, so we work very closely with all of our boutique and brand partners. And specifically for our boutiques, what we do is we're trying to educate the buyers on conscious trends, kind of key sustainable materials to look out for, key brands that are producing sustainably. So on a seasonal basis, we'll do cheat sheets for them before they go into market and before they're buying their collection, so they know what to look out for, and just to educate them on what brands are doing sustainable materials or what brands are using sustainable materials. Because
so do you influence their buy then?
Yeah, we try to help them and kind of give them information and give them the tools that they need to just to kind of spread education, so they go in with a more informed view on sustainability when they're going into market.
And are they receptive to that? Do they see you as a resource, or do they see you as someone who's trying to kind of change their business model?
No, I think they're very receptive to it. They find it helpful. Again, we're just providing them with the tools, and it's up to them if they want to use it or not. But we do get good feedback. And another thing that we do is we release an annual conscious luxury trends report every year. That's kind of, it's publicly available. It's for consumers, but it's kind of aimed at our brand and boutique partners to give them valuable insights on consumer trends and how the conscious customer is evolving over time. Which is very interesting. So yeah, we'll be releasing our next one in June. So keep an eye out for that. But yeah, so that's interesting, and it's kind of about educating the brands and the boutiques on the real commercial benefits to sustainability, because it's about doing the right thing, but it's also the consumer's mindset is changing now, and consumers are expecting this and they're looking for it. Like, we're seeing customers searching for sustainable search terms like organic and vegan on the marketplace, and there's actually a 10% higher conversion rate for products that are conscious versus non-conscious products. So there is a real commercial benefit there. So it's all about kind of communicating that.
That's amazing, actually, because I don't know if you saw in the Ganni presentation just now, they were the pricing on the more conscious fabric.
Yeah,
customers were up for paying for that. So 10% higher conversion rate if you can make an argument that it is ethically or sustainably produced. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So if it's if the product is tagged as conscious, we're seeing that uplift in conversion rate.
Yeah, great. So, well, that's all really encouraging. I mean, obviously everything is changing. Education of the customer is changing. Everybody's a little bit more aware of the things that we have to do. I want to ask each of you what you see changing in the industry, or what you see happening in the industry that you think will accelerate the change. Chet, can I start with you?
Oh my God. Sorry. I think that the way that the customers are buying and stuff like that, the way that they're consuming, is definitely the way to change the entire system. I think the way that we think about clothes and the way that we are very kind of like, it's kind of like, oh, I need a t-shirt. Let me go to Uniqlo and buy a t-shirt. That way of thinking is not very sustainable in the way that you're constantly buying and buying and buying. What's going to happen to that t-shirt in 10 years? You're probably going to throw it away or give it to somebody else, or just like just have it in the back of your closet or whatever. I think the way I approach dressing, the way I approach things is like, it's a special piece. I buy it, I literally have it until it literally is falling apart or eaten by moths or something, you know? And like, I think in that way, I don't buy clothes regularly. Luckily, I make my own, but like,
very sustainable.
But I definitely think that, like thinking about your wardrobe, thinking about essentials, and like figuring out ways to wear the clothes that you already have. I know it's counterintuitive for a designer to say that, but I think it definitely is something that I'm seeing people do, and that is the only way, in my eyes, to like completely change the system, is the way that people consume.
Amazing, thank you. Shop your wardrobe.
Yeah.
Keith?
I think, especially in the luxury sector, for every part of the industry, adopting more circular economy initiatives is I think what's going to accelerate the industry. I think with platforms like yourself offering those resale and rental initiatives as well. But then I keep going back to it, but designing for circularity, and not just about like what you do at the end of the life, but designing for circularity, making things recyclable, thinking about every aspect of the circular economy is key, and I think that's what will accelerate the industry.
Yeah, and Hannah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot earlier, but I think it's great that you are platforming for your customer opportunities to return and to recycle, and it's just up to communications and brands people to encourage people to do that, right?
Yeah, for sure.
What do you think, from a Farfetch's point of view, is going to accelerate the change most?
I think transparency is a really kind of key issue as well, and I think it's something that's definitely increasing and getting better over time. But I think that's the kind of the key to the whole industry kind of changing together, because disclosing Disclosing what's going well can inspire others. Disclosing what's not going so well can kind of help others be like, okay, it's not just us on our own here. We're all in this together. And I just think transparency, brand to brand, and also to the customer. Because as I mentioned, the customer is looking for that information. The customer is much more educated now, and they need that information. So I think the combination of the two, just general transparency, is the answer. One of the answers, in my opinion.
Great. We've got a couple of minutes, so I don't know if anyone has got a question for Chet or Keith or Hannah. If you don't, I do. Okay, so I think there's lots of moving parts here that need to kind of swing in, whether it's regulation, it's more circularity, it's education. From the point of view of your own businesses, what is the one thing that you would like, fairy godmother, Aladdin in the lamp, you can have it tomorrow? Chet, do you want to start with you?
Either £1 million or... also, I think there's... I know that it exists. There's like these amazing like fairs and stuff where they have like sustainable people go and like show, like the suppliers all go and show their work, and it's amazing and beautiful. Unfortunately, I've never actually happened upon one. I think if I could blink my eyes and make it happen, I would love an online platform. Like, I think, because I work with Nonasource as well.
But you show at London Fashion Week, right?
I do, yeah. But I work with Nonasource here, and I think that because what they do is they take dead stock fabrics from LVMH houses and then sell them to little kids like me. And then basically, like, that kind of platform is like amazing because you can buy like luxury fabrics for a like discounted rate, as well as it's completely like dead stock and sustainable. So it's like, wow, that's amazing. I kind of want more platforms like that. That would be great.
Keith, I'm going to grant you one wish.
Okay, I would say being able to have more investment and more innovation in wide-scale, cost-effective textile recycling. So I think it's something we're heavily investing in, and we have technology now where you can separate polycotton blended fibers. But I think having that for multiple different compositions and multiple different fibers at a scalable and cost-effective way would revolutionize the apparel industry.
And having it locally as well, right?
Yeah, and not having to ship it off to a different continent to be able to do it. Yeah.
Hannah, you've got one wish.
My one wish. Again, I think just going back to the transparency point, I think just kind of increased transparency across all brands would be my one wish. We actually launched with Good On You, we launched a brand tool last year, which is all about kind of educating brands and giving them the resources to kind of understand what they need to be disclosing and what they need to be communicating about. So we launched that. I guess my wish would be we've got 80 brands signed up now to get more brands using it and more brands disclosing that information.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Oh, thank you so much, guys. They are making luxury kinder to the planet, and it is amazing that these conversations are happening. And congratulations to Mills Fabrica as well for helping with that conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks. So now we're going to have a little introduction to 4 amazing innovators who are going to sort of do a little elevator pitch about what their business is, so you can understand and get a snapshot of what they do and how they're trying to innovate their part of the industry. So starting off, we're going to have Aiden, who's the co-founder and CEO of Fibe. He's also our competition winner for Textile for Social Good, which is a competition that we do globally. And he has a residency here in our little lab upstairs where he'll probably tell you all about it now. But yeah, over to you.
Hi, everyone. First of all, it's an absolute pleasure to be here, especially to speak amongst companies that I've been really looking up to since I actually began this project. So, my name's Idan. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Fibe, and our company is on a mission to create a scalable, affordable, and sustainable fiber out of potato harvest waste. So I'm guessing a lot of people here know quite a bit about fashion and quite a bit about materials, but maybe not so much about potatoes. So the way it works is potatoes are the 5th most grown crop in the world. They commonly grow in around 130 different countries. To do it, a farmer would typically put something called a mother potato in the soil, and soon enough, a plant will begin to sprout. And this plant can deliver nutrients to the potato, so we get more potatoes, which is great. But this is really where it gets interesting. Around 2 weeks before the harvesting period, the farmer will want to destroy and kill this crop. This is because it lets the skin of the potato harden, which makes it tasty, and also lets you store the entire year round. Now this begs the question of, what do we actually do with this plant? Well, we can't feed it to animals because it's poisonous. You can't turn it into a fertilizer because it has no nutritional value. And you can't compost it because it's highly likely to get a disease called blight, which can kill the rest of the plant. So farmers just want to get rid of this stuff as fast as possible, choosing to pulverize and incinerate this. And what this means is that we have a 250 million ton opportunity of waste that has no economic value to the farmers or the wider community. And this can provide more than the entire world's demand for non-synthetic clothing. So during the last year of uni, we had the somewhat crazy idea of taking this waste, which no one's ever looked at before, and trying to turn it into a textile. And we set ourselves 3 rules on this journey. The first one is we wanted to make something that's truly sustainable. Just from our initial research, we just saw how much greenwashing there is in this space in order to get a product into the market as fast as possible. And for us, we wanted this project to be a deeper exploration to see how far we can push a sustainable product without having to make any compromises. The second one is scale. We wanted something that we can replicate anywhere in the world and can retrofit into existing infrastructure. And the third one is affordability, because what's the point of making something if people don't actually have access to it? So after 6 months working upstairs, we came up with Fibe Paticel, which is the world's first textile out of potato harvest waste. So from our research, it has a diameter of around 10 to 15 microns, which means it's fairly soft. And also being a bast fiber, theoretically, it can be the entire length of the plant. So in terms of the actual ability to spin and weave it, we'll be doing that this summer. And we've also had confirmation from the companies and researchers that we're working with, which it should be soft, durable, and dyeable. So this is a quick overview of the entire operations of Fibe. We first purchased this otherwise valueless waste from UK farmers, providing them an additional revenue stream, but also simplifying their operations. The money we saved by working with this waste stream allows us to use a truly sustainable extraction process so that we can deliver this to fashion brands at a competitive price point. So how do we actually collect it? Well, it first begins by showing up to farms in a car and asking if you can collect their waste. If they're kind enough to let us do it, we cut the plants, we de-leaf them, and we remove any moisture so that we can store it the entire year round. And this is a painfully long, manual, and very boring process. So now we are working with one of the UK's largest agricultural machinery manufacturers to develop a new harvester that can let us collect and bale this stuff. And what this means is that we start off with a raw material that's 6 times cheaper than raw cotton. So this is where it gets interesting. The money we save from doing this means that we can invest our time in a truly sustainable extraction process. We're using a highly regulated process that we can do in a lab, which means that we can really fine-tune the parameters of our fibers. And we're doing so with a biological process, which breaks down the non-fibrous components of the plant. And then we have a mechanical process afterwards to shear that. And the impact of it is that we use no land, we use 99% less water, and we use 82% fewer carbon emissions compared to cotton. So what's next for us? Well, a lot of things. Hopefully, we can create a swatch of our material this summer, and then the year after, we can maybe have a capsule collection. But there's definitely, coming from an engineering background, we're still really trying to develop our skills in this space. We're looking for experts in the supply chain side of things, in the extraction side of things, and really anyone who can help us. But yeah, this is really our mission, to try to create the next mainstream materials to help lead the industry through its green transition. Thank you.
You were quite quick. But I think we're going to do Q&A at the end, maybe. We'll get you all up here and do Q&A at the end if we've got time. But yeah, thanks a lot. So So next we're going to have up is Julian from Saltico, and he's also one of our residents here in the building, and he's also showcasing his innovation downstairs, which I'm sure he's going to tell you about. But over to you.
We are. Hello, everyone. Real pleasure to be here. It's been an amazing morning of talks. I've really, really enjoyed them. I'm sure you have as well. I am the co-founder and CEO of Saltico. And at Saltico, we're making next-generation textiles from plants which are able to heal and restore one of our most precious ecosystems on Earth. And I'll come back to that a bit later. But I don't really need to go over this again. I'm sure you're all very aware of the problems we're facing. But one of the data points around the industry is that we're currently facing about a 461 megaton CO2 deficit. So each year we're producing that much too much carbon dioxide, and we need to reduce that to zero. And unfortunately, that's actually going to double by 2030 instead. Another interesting data point, earlier we saw Ganni, that 56% of their emissions are coming from their raw materials. Other studies have been done, and up to 70% of the environmental impact of the textiles that we buy, of the clothes that we buy, is coming from raw material sourcing and processing. So it's really, really critical that the start of the supply chain is where we focus. And whilst there have been, as we've seen today, a lot of amazing innovations in vegan leathers, organic cottons, and more kind of biosynthetics, one hidden but surprisingly significant problem remains unsolved, and that is insulations. So everything from your Balenciaga super puffer to the padded vests which power Silicon Valley, approximately 2 billion jackets will be made and filled with materials such as goose down and polyester in 2023 alone. That's a $300 billion industry. It's enormous. And whilst many materials like goose down are often considered byproducts of industries, they're actually really valuable materials which are propping up incredibly environmentally damaging production sources. And so at Saltico, what we do is we take one of the best plants in the world for wetland regeneration, some of our most precious ecosystems, and using a fiber processing technology, which is now patent pending, we transform it into a next generation insulation for industry called Biopuff. So Biopuff is a fiber fill for use as an alternative to goose down or synthetic fillers. And Biopuff is warm, incredibly lightweight, and breathable. And the reason for this is because we're able to mimic the cluster structure of goose down from a completely plant-based source. And creating that fiber architecture is what enables you to have a lofty material, but also trap all of those air pockets, which keeps you nice and warm when you're wearing your jackets. Biopuff comes in two forms, as a loose fill, but also as a non-woven wadding. And Biopuff origins are from the cattail, which is a native wetland plant. And so why are wetlands so important, and why are we so focused on them? Well, wetlands provide almost all of the world's fresh drinking water. They're our best carbon store in the world, and they also are really, really critical biodiversity hubs. Over 50% of the world's species rely on wetlands in some way for their survival. Unfortunately, most wetlands currently look like this. So 340 million hectares of wetlands around the world have been drained, mainly due to converting them for agriculture. And unfortunately, what that means is that as you drain the water out of these lands, those precious organics which are in the soil begin to rot and produce carbon dioxide. And they're now contributing to about 5% of all CO2 emissions around the world. That's about roughly the same as the entire fashion industry. So it's a really, really huge problem. However, what we're able to do by creating a product which starts within regenerated wetlands, we're able to transform them from looking like this to looking like this. So this is a 10-hectare plot which we source from in northern Germany. And each year, this will abate and prevent up to about 200 tons of carbon emissions from going into our atmosphere. And we're able to trace individually the fibers which grow from the plants all the way through to the ones which will end up in your jackets. Biopath is cheaper than Goose Down. We're trying to get it to that super cheap polyester price point, but as we've heard about today, there are challenges around that. But it's warmer than polyester, it's much warmer, due to that cluster structure which we're able to achieve. We're entering a huge Goose Down jacket market, insulated jacket market, but we also see applications for our technology in the much larger eco-fiber market as well. So not just producing Goose Down insulations from regenerated wetlands, but all kinds of textiles as well as a really precious fiber source. And the equivalent carbon opportunities within these are also massive. So we saw that 500 megaton deficit at the start. The ultimate capacity of regenerating wetlands for fiber production could have really, really untold returns. We've already showcased Biopath in a capsule collection with Italian brand Ukes. And recently we were asked to create a custom Biopath jacket for our newly crowned King Charles. The industry is looking for new materials. We've had loads and loads of brand engagement. These are conversations which we started right from the start of our journey when Saltico was founded a few years ago. And this is obviously what creates the impact at the end of the day, these really important connections which we're able to have. We've won lots of awards, blah, 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 blah. And we're now looking to raise our seed round as well. So if there are any investors in the room who are interested in investing in some of these next-gen solutions, we're currently opening, we're just opening our seed round as well. This is the team. 3 of us are here today, Nelly, Ella, and myself. We founded at Imperial College London on an interdisciplinary design course. We all come from different backgrounds. Finn's chemistry and materials science. Nelly worked in fashion before this. And we've now expanded that out. Ella has joined us as the raw material specialist previously for Sweaty Betty, doing some amazing work in our lab. And we're also advised by some of the leading minds in this industry. Also Irene, who's here today, who has become the name to have in your advisory board of your next-gen materials company. But yeah, if there's any questions, please do come and talk to me afterwards, and thank you very much for listening.
Thanks a lot, Julian. Next we got, Max Easton from Smartex.
Hello, everybody. I'm Max. I'm the Global Innovation Director at Smartex, which I joined from Fashion for Good in January, and I'm here to tell you what we're trying to build. So Smartex is, this is actually what you see in the factory when Smartex is going. It's the purple light of Smartex that you see inspecting your fabric. I'll get into that in a moment. But our whole focus is basically advancing textiles, and we do that through zero waste, and now through transparency as well. So this is the mission, right? I think a lot of attention goes towards innovators and brands always when it comes to sustainability, but as we saw through Ganni's presentation, over 95% of the emissions of most brands are in their supply chain. So we need to build the modern textile factory. Smartex's basically vision is to build those tools and enable that transition. So where we play, and I know there's been some different stats going around. For your context, this is from Apparel Impact Institute and Fashion for Good, but there's a lot of different ones depending on the brand you're going for. But we play in Tier 2, which in our view is one of the highest impact, along with Tier 4 steps of the supply chain, with over about 50% of CO2 emitted. And that's really because of the energy of heating up all that water, which you normally use to dye things. And it's also a very interesting place to play if you want to stop faults, right, which create a lot of wastage along the supply chain. So Smartex is right at the beginning of Tier 2, at the knitting stage, right? And if you can stop the faults from here, which come in usually from yarn contamination and also production of the knit, you can stop a lot of impact downstream, right, when it goes through the dyeing, when it gets to garment, which is all building up impact, but also building up cost and time to market, which brands are obviously very conscious of. So this is what Smartex set out to replace. Our CEO actually did this. He has his family as a textile factory in northern Portugal, and he did this for about 8 hours on end every day, and I think his eyesight is worse for it. So basically, this is a very ineffective way of stopping faults, not just because you can't spot them, but because it happens after the fabric is produced, right? So what we decided to do is go into the machine and actually be there when it's produced and spot these defaults using the buzzword, but we were back on it in 2019, of AI. And you can see all these different types of faults, like holes, which might not be a massive impact now. Downstream, if you have it on the front of your t-shirt, everything gets cut. Oil spots, which are actually reversible defects of the dye house. This will come into the traceability aspect in a moment of trying to reduce waste further by flagging these aspects. Elastane lines, which normally only come out when you dye the fabric. So if you dye it using a cotton dye, it only comes out white after, and then you're like, shit. And then also broken needle defects, which can go on for 40 meters plus. So this is the machine in a visual sense. We basically go in and retrofit any single circular knitting machine in the world. We have 80 mapped already that we've done. There's a lot more out there that we keep mapping. And we basically put a camera bar in with cameras and lights about 1.5 meters, 2 meters from where the fabric is being produced, and just take a photo of every single inch of that fabric, right? We then send it to our AI booster, processes it on our model, and we stop the machine when there's a fault, and the factory can set those standards. How much, how high does the quality need to be for this end customer that they're sending it to? And the worker there has a tablet, so when the machine stops, they don't have to open it up and see what's going on. They can see from our tablet and understand then, is it a needle defect that I need to fix? Is there too much oil? What is the situation? Fix it, and then the machine can go on working. So just a little bit more of a visual. This normally moves, but obviously it's a fixed thing. So you basically put in this camera bar, right? Takes all the photos, and all while it's spinning around. And then this is the tablet outside that you can engage with. That's the amount of meters of fabric that we've saved so far, and we mostly do this with what we call golden stops. So basically, when we install SmartX, we actually watch the production of this factory on that machine before we start stopping the machine. So we have before SmartX data and after SmartX data, which is very important to prove what you're actually doing. And from that watching, we see how long it takes them to actually fix needle defects or other aspects, which we can then say, well, we can now cut it down from 40 meters to 1.5 meters, or we can now do the X, Y, Z. So that's where these stats are coming from. The interesting part with sustainability is always, can you save impact, and can you also provide operational benefit? Anyone who's actually gone and seen textile factories or knows their financials knows they survive on very small, thin margins. So you have to add value immediately, otherwise you're just seen as a pain in the ass. So SmartX has basically focused a lot on that. Our primary customer is the supply chain, and we've recorded at this one particular mill in Eco 10 in Turkey, a very innovative mill, a payback period of up to 9 months. So normally we say about 1.5 years. These guys produce slightly more expensive fabrics, so they get the payback from the fabric saved, but also just from the labor productivity, right? You can suddenly moderate or manage 10 machines instead of 2 or 3 because you know that machine's going to stop when there's a problem. So SmartX is actually quite developed. We've raised over 30 million. There's 100 employees plus now, mostly based in Porto. I'm the only one outside in Amsterdam. And we're installed in over 80 factories now and 900 machines, right? And within those factories, there's a lot of upsell opportunities to basically try and build that modern textile factory within them, but also we're now expanding to different geographies like Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and Vietnam, as well as our strongholds like Turkey, Portugal, and Italy. But what's interesting, and this has actually ended up why I joined SmartX, is what you can leverage by having hardware in the supply chain, right? So I think we'll all agree, and this is SmartX Loop, which I'll take you through now. We can all agree that basically traceability is the buzzword. I was at Innovation Forum about 2 weeks ago, and I can't even remember how many times it was said, right? And it seems to align most brand departments, which is quite interesting. So on the one side, basically coming out of COVID, you have supply chain risk management. Where is my product? Where is my inventory? CFOs want to know this. Legislation. We all, I think, know quite a lot about this within the EU, New York Fashion Act, Uyghurs. So you have all this kind of legislation coming that's really now forcing the issue and making you take responsibility for your supply chain and the emissions that exist there. Finally, impact claims. We've talked again, like earlier in one of the panels, about the fact of it's annoying when someone comes out with a claim that isn't actually backed up. That's now being cracked down upon by all consumer market authorities, and suddenly it's scaring brands, and this is the whole adaptation of green hushing, but little light on the horizon is the fact that the brand that can actually prove it will then have an open market to make big claims with the evidence behind it, and that's what brands like to do, right? Make big claims and gain market share. So there's problems with traceability, right? There's real problems despite this like great demand and great drivers. One is that you only have static bad data currently. This usually comes from manual inputs from the factory level or one-time LCAs or audits that happen once a year. Something that just doesn't capture really what's going on in the supply chain. The second is that suppliers hate it because they're just told to go sit down, put more numbers in, attach more energy invoices, etc., for another traceability provider that's trying to help this thing. The one benefit of HIG is the fact that at least it's centralized, so they only do this once a year, right? So these are the two big problems going on in traceability. And so we basically saw the fact that we have 80+ machines, we're taking pictures of every single inch of this fabric, and we collect a lot of data around quality, when it was produced, where it was produced, and we now call this golden data, right? And this is verifiable. You can just look up on the photos. It's real time as that fabric roll is being produced. And incredibly, it's actually at the fabric roll level data, where most traceability is just at the factory level data, and they don't really know what's going on inside. It's a bit of a black box. So with this, which you capture through SmartX Core, our automated quality control system, they then basically cut the roll at the end of production, they weigh it like normal, and then instead of writing with a big fabric marker that basically usually gets rubbed out at some point along the process, they basically heat press on a label, and we call it the SmartX, well, the loop passport. And that takes about 7 seconds, and it's got the information the factory needs on the left-hand side and a good old QR code on the right. And that QR code has all the information we've captured about that roll, including all the other things that we can get via integrations with the factory systems. Most importantly, this is very controlled who can access this information, which we do through a loop network. Think of LinkedIn, Instagram, which the knitter can control who gets to be in that network and who gets to basically see the information about that roll. So this is what we see as the future of fashion, right? And this is what we see as a trademark of a modern textile factory. You would see a roll dyed with the label on it, still staying white, and you can have production information on it, so things around like reported materials in it, when it was made, where it was made, anomalies and stops, that's all about quality information that can be passed along, and then the roll journey between the knitter and the dye house. So just to recap, because there's a lot, SmartX basically is now providing golden data, right? Real-time fabric roll level data from tier 2. We offer a clear ROI for your suppliers, so we see it as an operational upgrade as well as a sustainability upgrade. You have a sustainability win of this proof of wastage reduced with the SmartX Core system. Production insights for brands, right? If the knitter can share this information about the fact that they've sent it to the dye house through our Loop platform, then the brand can have a real data point of saying, right, it's gone from the knitter to the dye house, and I actually know that for sure. And we look to extend that over time. And then finally, a strategic competitive advantage. I joined SmartX because I hope that in 2 years, I'll be able to prove a fabric roll has gone through a dry processing innovator, right, which are high impact innovations that require no water and therefore no energy and heat. And you could save about 25% on a t-shirt. So a brand can come out and validate that their t-shirt has 25% less CO2 because of SmartX, right? Not because of our technology doing it, but because we've proven that it's gone through it. So this is our vision, build the modern textile factory. And we do it at the moment through knitting, and we're looking to expand out. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. Next up, we've got Walden, who's part of the Mills Fabrica family for a long time now. One of our early investments, co-founder and CEO for Unspun. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just to show you the relationship that we have with the Mills Fabrica, they've arranged so that I'm the only physical barrier between you and lunch. So thank you so much. So as Nikita mentioned, we're Unspun. SmartX has talked about knit. We're going to dive into woven. So we are one of the, I guess, super audacious goal is to reduce global human carbon footprint by 1%. By essentially creating an on-demand supply chain. How? There are a lot of systematic problems beyond materials, right? Obviously, dead stock is a major problem. In a good year, 20% of garments that we create are wasted. They're dead stock, typically landfilled or incinerated. And then supply chain. Even before COVID, we're talking about 9 to 18 months before when products are available. And then, as we all know, less than 2% of garments are recycled. So we're creating a supply chain essentially that can create zero inventory, localized, and circular. Our very first product to the market is denim jeans. That's what we're known for. Essentially, through an iPhone, you can scan, create custom jeans. We deliver, working with existing supply chain, deliver within 2 to 3 weeks to the end consumers. You can pick your wash colors, waist height, hem length, stitch color, all of those good things. And this is zero inventory. This is great. We never have to throw a garment to the landfill. And we have sold about 10,000 units of these denim jeans all around the world. And I've really partnered with some of the global brands to bring this mainstream. And now that we've done that, we are ready for stage 2. Also, one note, obviously I have to talk about unspun a lot of times, but a lot of the materials, actually all of the materials that I'm sharing today, I'm sharing it for the first time. So bear with me, I might not know what I'm doing. So we're ready essentially to unveil the world's first 3D weaving machine. Essentially what this does is it built the pant legs from the ground up in under 10 minutes in a zero cut waste process. And this also enables us to basically work with innovators, recycled materials in a small batch production process, because essentially we have warp weft in a circular fashion that we can weave it. And then this, because this is highly automated, we can bring manufacturing closer to where consumption happens. And as we speak, we're busy building the world's first micro-factory powered by 3D weaving machine in the middle of California, directly from yarn to final garment. And if we can prove that we can build it in California, I think we can do it anywhere else in the world. And voila, this is the first product. I don't think anybody's seen this yet. So this is the first product coming out of the 3D weaving machine. As you can see, they are seamless. So basically getting quite close to a zero cut waste process. And those can be produced in the machine for under 10 minutes. And also because as you're weaving it, that can be integrated into how scan works and how the body analogy works. Essentially, you would know where you're weaving across the knee versus different parts of the garment, which means you can use different materials to augment the functionality of the garment. And this is supposed to play, but essentially this is showing a garment that's being rewoven into a second generation garment. How we're able to achieve this is basically by passing the cut and sew process. If you think about it, a normal pair of jeans is cut and sew. It has to go through a chemical or mechanical recycling process. But because we have a continuous weft yarn, we can unravel the pair of pants and then use the yarn to get back into the final garment. We have an example here where we basically disassemble an existing garment, a waste garment that was going to go into a landfill, basically unravel it into the basic yarn format, and then reweave it into a garment. So that would basically enable us to shortcut the recycling process where we turn garment into yarn back into final garment. With that, yeah, super grateful for the partners that we have. We partner with big brands, innovators, small brands, and the only thing is we do life cycle assessments on all of our collaborations. If you're up for that, hit us up on Instagram, LinkedIn. With that, lunch is served or questions?
Oh, just a little announcement. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Walden. Thanks, guys. It's amazing to see all those innovations. So I just want to say thank you for everyone for coming here today. Thank you for London Craft Week for letting us be your innovation partner for the 3rd year running. I just want to say thank you to Amy, who's behind the scenes, helped organize everything here with all the speakers and everyone. And I just want to let you all know that you're all going to be guinea pigs today because we have a new innovative pasta that we're serving from one of our startups called Supplant. But they actually take They take the wheat and the wheat stalks and make flour out of it, and have made pasta, which is launched here and in the US. So we're going to be trying that for the first time today. Everyone together, so let us know how you think. And we were going to do a Q&A, but we've overrun, and I guess everyone's a little bit hungry. But what I do is try and find everyone who is presenting up here and just accost them and ask them any questions and get their details. And also, if you want any other details from anyone, you can come and find me, and I can share as well. But thanks a lot, everyone. I think, yeah, hopefully it was a super inspiring day, and we can all work together to help, build this impetus around sustainability for the fashion industry. Thank you.